Hello and welcome to Truth in Movies. Today, we're going to be breaking down everything, everywhere, all at once. And I'm JayDreamerZ. In this segment, I recognize that there's a lot of truth in Hollywood movies, or any movie that I watch, really. I believe that truth is everywhere, in everything, all at once. This movie blew my mind, and typically it takes me about half of a day to break down these movies. This one took me 2 days. So put your thinking caps on. You're in for a wild ride as we venture into the fractalverse. Let's go ahead and start everything off. This movie is about what most people refer to as the multiverse concept or the multiverse theory, which is becoming very popular these days. There's a reason behind that. All right, let's jump into the movie. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Now, it starts off by showing you who produces the movie, which is Leyline Entertainment. I always like to see who produces these things and what their little symbols are because I like to break it down to see. It's like they give you a little preview of what message they're trying to share with you. Ley lines are to be found on the maps of the world. It says here that ley lines are straight alignments drawn between various historic structures and prominent landmarks. So the theory is that there is, in ancient times, and even in modern times, that some of our most interesting structures and prolific structures were built on a grid that lays across the earth, just like your chakras do, right? And whenever you draw lines from structure to structure, you can see that they are somehow energetically connected. Now, at the bottom here, it says archaeologists and scientists regard ley lines as an example of pseudo-archaeology and pseudo-science. Pseudo meaning false or fake. Well, check this out. This is what happens when you map out these structures and put them on the map, which is why people are so interested in the concept of ley lines, because all you really need to do is take a look at it and you can see that it perfectly maps out a grid on the earth. Or if you use an altogether different style of map, you put them on and it looks like this, which exactly matches. This one says it's converted to the azimuthal equidistant map. NASA's International Earth Flag is this. And the ley lines on this map are this. They're the exact same thing. So there's good reasons why some of us out here believe in what are known as dragon lines or ley lines. Time to open your third eye. Are you ready to jump into the portal? Jump into the fractalverse with me? We start things off by looking into a mirror, a circular mirror. As a matter of fact, we're about to walk right through this mirror. We're about to travel into the mirror world. What's the mirror world? We see that all the time in the movies whenever they show us somebody walking through a mirror. And when they get to the other side, it's usually some sort of a fantasy world or a world that is very much like the one that they were just in with slight differences in it. This is because it represents symbolically our sky. When we go through the sky itself, which acts as a reflective surface, so the sky is symbolically the mirror. When we transcend the barrier of the sky and we go out into the other worlds, we arrive on the other side of other worlds' skies, and we drop in where everything is kind of wonderful and altogether different. So this movie's no exception. As you come with me now, we go into the mirror and we meet these characters. The first one speaks right to you. The second you get through the mirror, the first message, she says, "Stop playing. We don't have time. Stop playing. We don't have time." This is what we're doing right now. I believe that the movies speak to us, especially when they give a command, when they tell you to stop, when they tell you to watch, when they tell you to pay attention. I do. I pause the movie and I'll meditate on whatever's being shared. Stop playing. We don't have time. We're all playing right now. We're playing characters and parts and roles, and we're having fun with all of the drama that we're involved in, caught up in life. But we don't have time for all of that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. We need to prepare ourselves for a journey that is much greater and grander than all of our minuscule, tiny little problems with our drama that we have created in order to entertain ourselves. There are things far and vastly more entertaining and greater and grander and bigger than just your local problems in your local world. We're about to jump into what I call the fractalverse, which is a world split into infinite versions of itself. You might call it space. Other people might call it the heavens. And then the other character jumps in. He says, all right, Evelyn, calm down. So her name is Evelyn, and her husband tells her to calm down. That's another piece of advice for us who are going to be going through a transition soon. Remain calm, right? Whenever the stuff hits the fan, you want to be calm so that you can think clearly. Now let's look up Evelyn's name. I like to study etymology, which is word origins, so that I can better figure out what the words that I'm using and the words that are being presented to me mean. What do they mean? What exactly are we talking about, right? Instead of vague generalities that are open to interpretation by anyone, let's be on the same page. Evelyn, it says here, or Lynn, I'm sorry. Let's start with Ev, E-V-E. Well, that's the name of Adam's wife, Eve. Her name comes from Hawa, which means life. So Eve literally means life. It can also be translated as darkness or an evening of the day, whenever the evening comes and the light is going away. So her name can be translated as something that is dark or life, or both, a combination of both. Lynn. So Eve Lynn. Lynn means, it's from Welsh and Celtic words for lake, waterfall, pool, and pond. So this character in the movie represents a dark pool of water, a dark lake, a dark pond, or a lake or a waterfall of life, right? Which, if you followed my channel, we talk about the plasma volcano that emits the fountain of youth. We just did a video about the fountain of youth before. And traditionally, that area where the plasma volcano or Mount Meru shoots up this beam of energy every other cycle, it's on an island that is said to have dark waters. Those waters are exceptionally dark because they're not muddied up with all of the extra, saline, like salt and sand and debris and stuff. It's clear water, where the waters of our world are created, and where all of the original currents come from. Because those waters are so clear, light is allowed to pass all the way down into the depths, which makes it look like the waters are very dark. Waters that are more murky and have more pollutants in them, or debris, they'll be more reflective. So the light will hit that murky stuff and it'll reflect back at us. So she represents somebody who is from the dark waters, aka the blue beam. All right, let's move forward. This is her husband. So her husband starts things off. They're actually doing their taxes right now, which I'm going to reference taxes. Taxes are pretty huge as a symbolic element in the movie. Taxes represent what is due. It represents the day of judgment. It represents a day of accountability when all of us have to pay our dues, basically, where all of us are weighed against the feather of Mahat in Egyptian mythology, and all of us have a judgment where our souls are basically seen for what they are. This is the apocalypse. So it's represented oftentimes by like tax day and stuff like that in the movies. Her husband has a paper that is going to be serving her a divorce, okay? So let's say symbolically that she represents that blue beam, or the life, right, that shoots up out of the world from time to time. Her husband would represent Mount Meru itself. And he's holding this paperwork, which is a divorce decree that has these 3 little pieces of color on it. And if we take a closer look here at the divorce decree, it says that her full name is Evelyn Wang. Now check this out. Evelyn can equate or be translated into dark waters, right? Or it can be waters of life. Wang basically means rulership or royalty, basically. And his name is Waymond Wang, right? And it's not like a funny joke about Raymond and how Chinese people have a problem saying R's. It's really the name Waymond, right? Not Raymond, but Waymond. So let's check out the name Wang and see what Wang means in Chinese. Check this out. It's got multiple meanings. The most common one, especially when it's like used as a surname or a last name, it means king. Wang means king. It also means to forget. So those waters, those dark waters, are a place that we have forgotten. So it means to forget, but it also means royalty. So what we're looking at with these 2 characters right now are symbolically royalty, right? And I'm not talking about earthly royalty. I'm talking about cosmic royalty. I'm talking about the royalty of the world, meaning the sky and the spirit of the world itself. All right, let's move forward. So Evelyn is, she doesn't know about the divorce decree quite yet. They own a laundromat, right? They actually live on the top floor of the laundromat. So she goes back down and she sees this girl and she goes, wow, what a big nose. And this girl kind of represents, you know, a certain class in the world right now. She's very ritzy and stuff like that. And then they focus in on the dog. When they show you a dog, oftentimes it's symbolic of gods, right? So they're actually showing you the gods that come down, that may or may not have large noses. I also believe that there some of those classes of fractalverse travelers, I use the term gods loosely, okay? But many of them are eternal or immortal in comparison to our little 80 years of life or whatnot, right? So their noses tend to continue growing and their ears continue growing. These are a couple of body parts that don't stop growing after puberty. So typically those types of beings are seen as having larger noses and larger ears. All right, so here's her daughter in the background. You see her daughter right there? So she's having this conversation with her daughter because her father's birthday is tonight. His name is Gong. And they're talking about how, you know, should she bring her girlfriend or not? Because the grandfather's old school and they don't know how he would take that news. But the name of the grandfather is Gong. Check this out. What does Gong mean? So Gong is a Chinese water god who is depicted in Chinese mythology and folk tales as having a copper human head with an iron forehead, red hair, and the body of a serpent, or sometimes the head and torso are human and the tail of a serpent. He is destructive and is blamed for various cosmic catastrophes. So automatically we have elements of the plasma apocalypse itself, right? We have Evelyn here, who represents the blue beam. We have her daughter, who we're going to find out what she represents. And then we have Gong, which is the grandfather, who represents a cataclysmic cycle of water, right? Stay with me. It's all going to make sense in about 15 minutes. All right. Gong was ashamed that he lost the fight with Zerong. This is Chinese mythology, the Chinese god of fire. So Gong, the Chinese god of water, fought the Chinese god of fire to claim the throne of heaven. In a fit of rage, he smashed his head against Buzu Mountain, one of 8 pillars holding up the sky, greatly damaging it and causing the sky to tilt towards the northwest and the earth to shift to the southeast, which caused great floods and suffering. So that's a little esoteric background on Gong and who that character represents. So she says, let him enjoy his party tonight, right? When we're talking about the birthday party, right, oftentimes symbolically, we're talking about the day of creation of the world. Our world goes through various resets, and when that day of resetting our world comes, what I call the plasma apocalypse, it's an electromagnetic reversal and a worldwide depressurization where the polarity of our world flips and it shifts and it goes around the other way and energy travels in the other direction, right? That is the birthday party of our world. It's when our world gives birth to the light. All right, so then she gets upset and she's handling the laundry. She goes, no more Google eyes. No more Google eyes, right? Google is basically a word that means it basically is well, it's a number, but it's such a high number. It's like a 1 followed by 100 zeros, right? So the word Google itself is synonymous with being infinite, basically. It's something so high that you can't even barely wrap your mind around it. She says, no more Google eyes. Those googly eyes all over the place, they're just single eyes, just like the one I have here on my hat. They represent perspectives from everywhere, every place, all at once. What's the movie? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. They represent perspectives from every perspective, right? Because every perspective is a part of this grand experience. We're going to see more about that in a bit. So as she's talking to her daughter, all of a sudden the TV starts to go all staticky and it says calculating route. And then when we zoom in on one of these little monitors, it says over here, establishing a connection. So they're establishing some kind of a connection going on her security monitors. And, well, I'll show you what that is here in a bit. But basically, we're going to learn about fractalverse traveling or astral traveling in just a minute. All right, so she goes back to her paperwork. This is us on the day of judgment, okay? Every single thing that you have ever done, thought, experienced, etc., is written down in the coding of your body and is imprinted upon the memory of your spirit, basically, right? We don't remember any of this, okay? Most of us forget about all of this. We have a dim knowledge of ourselves and the world that we live in at the present moment, but one day that knowledge will be expanded. All right, so she's being audited by the IRS. That's why it's tax time for her. Let's look up the word audit. If we look it up, it comes from the Latin word auditus, which means a hearing, to listen to something, right? Where you sit down and you give a presentation like I'm doing right now, you are all auditing me. You are listening to what I have to say. The great audit, or the great day of judgment, is the grand audit symbolically. Whenever we take into account all of our goods, all of our bads, all of our lessons learned in life, and they are presented to us during the apocalypse. And that's whenever the world fills with energy and telepathy is reintroduced into our world. That brings us to part one, everything. Part one, everything. So they jump into their little car and they're headed to the IRS office. But on their way there, they actually pass up this pizza person who's holding this sign. Later on in the movie, in another universe, this is actually Evelyn. This is actually her holding this sign. But I thought this was interesting that they put this pizza symbolism in here. This person's twirling this around, and I purposefully stopped it so that the arrow was pointing down, because pizza is symbolic of the world that we live on the surface world. Now, she's on her way to the great audit, to the grand audit, symbolically speaking, which is the apocalypse. And there's no going back. There's no turning around. That's why they have the no U-turn sign there. The pizza symbolism. Let me show you an example of why I believe the pizza symbolism represents the world that we live in today. It's basically very simple. It has to do with the shape of the pizza. If you superimpose the land that was once at the North Pole onto a pizza itself, you can see that this land right here has crust all the way around it. This is a valley. This is ancient land at the North Pole that was removed from modern maps, and it's surrounded by what you would call a crust. It is also round in shape and flat. So here's another 3D version of it. Basically, you can see sort of the pizza slices, the 4 pizza slices, and there's a central part that would be missing there. All right, so she says, quickly, we're going to be late. We're going to be late. The apocalypse is going to be late. The apocalypse always comes when you least expect it, when you don't expect it. When everyone's saying, oh man, the apocalypse is going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's probably not. It usually happens when the world is distracted. I will say that. According to my research, typically the apocalypse comes when people are too preoccupied with petty things like wars and gossip and rumors and, all of our drama that we create. Excuse me. So quickly, we're going to be late. Hey, I got a donation from Hamed Afakir. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. So here's the husband. He's rolling the grandfather into the IRS building. Remember Gong Gong? Looks over at this elderly Asian guy. And then he kind of like stares off into space like, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to grow to be that old where I'm very wrinkly and frail and stuff, I would like to be happy like this guy right here. I'd like to be able to smile. I want wrinkles that reflect the life that I have lived, and I want those wrinkles to reflect smiles instead of frowns, right? Another thing is he's also probably thinking, man, I don't want to get old. Forget that, because a huge part of this movie has to do with living eternally, or with continuing on your lifespan, knowing that death as a concept does not exist. It's pretend, and it is pretense. We pretend that there is such a thing as death, meaning you just black out, you just blank out, and it's all black forever, or not even blackness. You know what I mean? It's just nothingness and nothingness. I personally don't believe in death because I don't believe in nothingness. I believe in fullness. I believe in everything. I believe in life, not death, which is the opposite. So, if life is real, to me, death must be us pretending. Once again, we like to have fun, but as she said at the beginning, stop playing, right? We're running out of time. So the husband says, I was thinking maybe this is after all done, we can go on a trip. They're talking to us, right? Maybe when this is all done, we can go on a trip. Where are we going to go on a trip to? the fractalverse, beyond the boundaries of the sky that confines us to this world, that keeps our world pressurized, building and building until eventually it will explode and the sky will rip apart and everything gets sucked up into the sky and transferred to another hub, to another place where all of that genetic material, all of that information, all of your memories will be used and weighed out for some greater, grander purpose. So we're going to take a trip. Do you want to stay here in this world as it is any longer? Evelyn feels like her head is going to explode because she's got so much information coming to her. So subconsciously, she puts her finger up to like her third eye area. And then all of a sudden, the husband gets reconnected from some other being out there in the fractalverse. So all of a sudden, he has a different spirit. He has a different soul. He is being possessed by his higher self, you could call it, right? It is another Waymond from another reality that is equal but separate to this reality right here. And they have figured out how to jump those realities. We'll talk more about that in a minute. He says, you may be in grave danger. They're talking to us. Now, in order to stay protected, he opens up an umbrella because he's holding it up against this camera. But the umbrella does represent protection as well. It represents our dome of our world. And as you can see on top, he's got all these little circles on there. The circle symbolism is huge in this movie. We're going to jump into it. So he says, pay attention. I pause the movie. Like when this part happens, he says, pay attention. I'm like, okay, you got me. I'm paying attention. What's going on? We got an umbrella. We got little donuts all over it, which represent Taurus fields, which represent electricity around the outside of the dome that we live under right now, right? And they're making plans under the dome that he's holding up, or under the umbrella that he's holding up. They're making plans to escape. They're making plans to leave. Notice how she holds on to that central portion that represents symbolically the beam of light that holds up the sky. Hey, thanks, Ken. I appreciate you. Appreciate it. So he says, now pay attention. You can either turn left, right? Pay attention. You can either turn left towards your scheduled audit appointment, which represents the apocalypse, right? Or you can turn right. Right? Right means doing the right thing also, right? And go into the janitor's closet. So he's giving her, aka you, an option when it comes to the apocalypse. You can either try to survive the apocalypse by waiting for your appointment to come, which is going to be late, right? Or you can turn right and you can go into the janitor's closet, which I'll explain what the janitor's closet symbolism is in just a minute. So he does something to her phone and it says on her phone, check this out. It says alternate life path scanning. So you and I have alternate life paths, according to the movie, at the very least, right? I believe that this is true within what I call the fractalverse, right? What is the fractalverse? Imagine our world, however you would like to see our world. So, for example, in modern academics, you would have the concept of space, and we are on a spinning, wobbling, tilting, whirling, flying little marble, and there are other flying marbles out there that we would call planets, right? In the movie's concept, and in my concept of the fractalverse, there are no other planets, there are other Earths, there are other worlds, right? Actually, that's not true. Let me correct myself. There are multiple other Earths, okay? Exactly like this one, okay? It is Earth. It's just things happen in a slightly different way. The dominoes were set up in a slightly different pattern, so when they're knocked over, they all still fall, but they fall differently than they would fall here in our world, right? And there may also be other realms that have their copies as well, right? So imagine, if you will, that our world is more like a snow globe, right? And off to the sides of us, if you were to go past the boundaries or the limits of our world, which is called the sky, or even if you were to go underneath our world, you would encounter multiple other realms, multiple other worlds, and many of those, right, if it is a simulation, or if it is the mind of God, as some people would refer to it as, it makes sense to me that all of those other Earths or all of those other realms or worlds would save on memory by copying and pasting or repeating the pattern, repeating the code over and over and over. That means your code. That means your DNA. That means that's why we have doppelgangers even here on Earth, right? If once the population gets too out of control, then the code starts to repeat. The DNA pattern starts to repeat. The coding for our very world and the vibrations are shared throughout the fractalverse. So, what does that mean for us in this movie? That means that there are multiple JayDreamers out there right now doing all sorts of different things out there in order to collectively experience everything. All right. So now that we have that concept down, he says, breathe in. You're going to feel a slight pressure in your head. Now, this is advice to us. When the apocalypse happens, our world depressurizes. It is very severe. Okay, I don't want to downplay it. It's going to come on suddenly. It's going to explode windows. It's going to cause very loud sounds. Lots and lots of wind are going to suddenly erupt, and everything will change in a split second. It will be scary for many people. Another thing is the oxygen and the atmosphere will be sucked up into the sky, making it difficult to breathe. It will be like you are in a wind tunnel. So this is good advice that they give to us when it comes to this apocalyptic event. How do I know it's referencing an apocalyptic event? Because that is the time when you can traverse other worlds. That is the time when you can become a fractalverse traveler. That is the time when other fractalverse travelers can enter into our world and float on down and experience a new place, right? All right, so he says, breathe in. You're going to feel a slight pressure in your head. You need to remember to breathe. Remember to breathe, control your breathing, and he says you'll feel a slight pressure in your head. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to feel an extreme pressure in your head because the world will depressurize, and when that happens, you need to depressurize your head. Otherwise, your sinuses could burst, okay? You could get nosebleeds, you could bleed from the eyes and the ears. One easy way to do this is how I do it, right? Plug your nose and just try to breathe out of your nose, right? Keep your mouth closed. Okay, I did it just now. I could hear my ears pop, basically. So make your ears pop. All right, that's another tip. Now, she doesn't believe what's going on. She just thinks that her husband's acting crazy and weird for no reason whatsoever. Now, he downloads an alternate consciousness, an alternate version of her, the consciousness, right, or the higher self, and puts it into her so that she can become aware and realize that she has these other experiences out there. So she sees the light. And they make her see the light. Now, if you notice, that light's kind of a bluish-white color, too. That's purposefully done. Now, he says, the moment that you're situated in your meeting, now this is talking to us, there's going to be some kind of a meeting worldwide. And the moment that happens, follow these instructions, okay? I'll be blunt with you. The meeting is war, okay? Unfortunately. But the moment that you are in this meeting, aka World War III kicks off, right? Follow these instructions. All right. But remember, nobody can know. Don't even talk to me about this because I won't remember. Why won't he remember? Because your higher self makes appearances. For some of us, it doesn't make any appearances whatsoever because some of us don't have the energy to contact or to open up that channel to your higher self, basically. But the higher self, it falls upon us from time to time. There will come a time when you will be connected permanently to that higher self. And I'm speaking in sort of symbolic language here. All right, so she's freaking out. She's like, oh man, what just happened, right? The husband snaps back into normal Wayman mode and he just goes about his business. Now, she's at her meeting, right? Which is our meeting. Let's take a look at the instructions real quick. I want to see what these say. Step number 1, switch your shoes to the wrong feet, right? Now, remember, these are steps for her to take in order to be able to leave her reality at doing her taxes and all of the boring stuff that comes with this world and to change it in order to traverse the fractalverse, basically. I'll explain that more in detail in just a minute. But switch your shoes to the wrong feet. Step number 1. Let's talk about that. She says, Mrs. Wang, are you with us? This is the tax lady. The tax lady is like, hey, are you with us? And this is speaking to us, right? Oftentimes you'll be zoned out, right? Sometimes you'll be zoned out. And in the movie, those times when we zone out, right? Those are the times when we are connected to so many things that here it's like we're on pause, basically. Like, hold on, I need to sort out some things that are not at the forefront of my conscious thoughts, right? So she says, Mrs. Wang, I was just hoping that you could explain this. And then she hands up, she holds up this. Right? Now, your common person will just say, oh man, she's asking, oh, she found something on the receipt. Oh man, she's, there's some kind of tax problem or whatever. But that's not what it is. When the movies show you this image right here, right? It's not that they want you to try to figure out some difficult symbolic alien language and there's this deep concept behind what they're trying to say. And I have to try to go real far and real in depth into all the possibilities. No. She's showing you literally what she's trying to get you to see. She says, I wonder if you could explain this. A black circle. That circle is the ring. That circle is the depressurization point, which is also known as the place of the crossing, right? When it appears in the sky, it's because a hole has been blown out in our sky. Our atmosphere has been sucked out of it, along with many other things. And the world goes dark. So the only light that we see comes from that ring. Comes from that circle in the sky, which you can then exit through if you'd like to, and other things can drop down in, right? So how do we do this? Well, step 1 says switch your shoes to the wrong feet. What does that have to do with anything? She switches her shoes to the wrong feet. They're going to explain this in more detail as the movie goes on, but essentially they're saying you need to start doing things differently. Okay, symbolically switching if you actually just put your shoes on the wrong feet, yes, that might change some stuff in your life or whatever, but symbolically, this is saying to change the way you walk, change the way your path is, okay? Start doing things differently. You have to break the cycles. You have to break the loops. That is step number 1. Step number 2, close your eyes and imagine that you are in the janitor's closet. So she closes her eyes and she focuses. What she's doing right now is meditating, right? Step 1, change your actions, change your path. Stop doing the things that you always do. Break those loops. Step number 2, meditate on what? On being in the janitor's closet. What does the janitor's closet represent? Well, if we look up the word janitor, it comes from Ianua, which means a door, an entrance, or a gate, from Ianus, which means an arched passageway or arcade or place of the arch. And then it says to see the word Janus, which is the god that has 2 faces, the god of doors. 0, cool, hey, thank you, I appreciate it. Much love to you too. This is Janus, okay? So concentrate on this guy's closet. The closet of Janus. Janus comes from the root word gan, which means garden. Jan Oz just means strong of the garden or strong with the garden. It's like saying the force is strong with this one, basically, right? And this is what you see if you go to the Garden of Eden. You have a plasmic discharge that creates these little eddies that look like eyes on the side, and the god has 2 faces. Other people would see it in other ways as it's cartoonified and interpreted, processed through our own perception filters. This is what you're looking at, though. This is a plasma discharge. Imagine that the bottom of the plasma is Mount Meru. It's shooting up from the earth and splitting up towards the top, creating these little eddies. And in the middle there is a torus field. We'll get back to the torus field in just a minute. So he says, hold that thought and press the green button. Close your eyes. Imagine that you are in the janitor's closet. The janitor's closet is inside of the earth. It is an inner earth entrance. Okay. It is the place of the door. Okay. It is the place where it's the back rooms to our world, basically. Okay. It is Mount Meru. And traditionally, according to my research, it has been the only place that seems to guarantee some form of safety, right? When it comes to the apocalypse. So imagine that you are in this peaceful place. Meditate, change your thoughts. First thing, change your actions, change your thoughts, meditate. Meditate on what? A peaceful place, right? And then she has this little thing that she was given, this little Bluetooth phone thing. It has a green button on it, right? Once she does all of this, she has to activate the green button. Activating the green button is symbolic of opening up your heart, okay? Opening up your mind, opening up your heart, and being in a good place. So she activates it and boom, all of a sudden she's sucked back to the janitor's closet, and the screen fractures at this particular moment. It's to give this sort of an effect, right? That she's halfway in one world and halfway in another. This is happening to all of you right now. Right now, half of you, or a part of you, I should say, is watching me. Half of you is in the chat. Half of you is, whatever you're doing while you're watching this live stream. The other part of you is connected to what I call a soul string, to your higher self, and subsequently to all of your other lower selves, which you can access through the higher self. All right, so she's halfway in the janitor's closet and she's halfway in the real world. So in the real world, she's zoning out, thinking about the taxes and stuff. In this other place where she's meditating on, she's astrally projecting herself right now, okay? She really is becoming aware or conscious of basically she's waking up in some other world, okay? So in some other world, she's going through the motions and all of a sudden, boom, her higher self descends upon her. And she's like, whoa, what's going on? Now, the husband is there and he says, relax your body in the other universe, please. So he says, go into autopilot. Okay. So she goes into autopilot. She's just going through the motions. She's not there right now, right? This happens to us sometimes too. This could be what explains what happens whenever we just zone out like that, right? Sometimes you're overwhelmed with so many things and you keep pushing it to the back to your subconscious that subconscious needs to take care of some things. It needs to sort out some things and do paperwork basically and file stuff away. Now, he first starts off by saying, I am not your husband, at least not the one that you know. I am another version of him from another life path on another universe, right? Now, this gets pretty deep because just knowing this knowledge, this is secret knowledge, okay? Just knowing this, if you were to act upon it and try to leave this world, there are those other factions out there that frown upon that. And they say, no, not just anybody can just roam about the fractalverse, going around changing all these different versions of yourself and stuff because they have a plan out there, right? So basically they're space cops. All right, he says, I'm here because we need your help. Now, he's talking to you once more. I'm here because we need your help. This movie is made for you. It's not made for all of the people and they just really want to entertain everybody and they just want to make a lot of money and stuff. Yes, those are byproducts, but this movie is here because they need your help. Whoever they are, whoever this person represents, they need your help. They're talking to us. I believe that our higher selves out there, God, whatever you want to call it, that we are constantly, if you're a truth seeker and you go seeking after the truth to discover new things, you will find those things, that those are dropped on your path as breadcrumbs to help you along the way. He says, there is a great evil that has taken root in my world and has begun spreading its chaos throughout the many verses. I have spent years searching for the one who might be able to match this great evil with an even greater good. So right there, we're talking about the classic battle between what is perceived as good and evil, right? There is a lot of evil in the world today. So you can imagine the evil spreading around like wildfire, and it's contagious. It is easy to become evil. It is difficult to become good. He says he's looking for the one who will bring back balance. Balance is the reset point. Balance is like, for example, right now, our world is severely unbalanced. Okay. The scales are way tipped in the wrong direction, which means eventually all the stuff that is weighing it down will fall off and it will rebalance itself out. It is a neutral point that our world and our surrounding local realms all go through at the same time, right? It's a synaptic response, I believe, that is happening electromagnetically throughout our local region of what is commonly called space, or the fractalverse, right? It is our branch of the tree of life going through an event that is electromagnetic in nature, where plasma inundates every single world. The tops of those worlds open up, and all of the information is extracted because it's a data harvest. All right, so we go back to the IRS lady, right? Isn't that interesting, right? How the movie takes us from like, whoa, deep stuff. We're talking about the fractalverse. We're talking about secrets and good versus evil. Excuse me, excuse me, taxes are very important and all of the stuff in this world is very important. You know what I mean? Like the movie slams that right back into our face because this is what happens in the real world. This is your boring world. This is the real world. This is reality. Reality is exciting, man. If you only could break out of this portion of it, you would have so much more fun. So she goes, hello, do you see these? And then she points to her interestingly shaped awards that she's been getting at work, her tax awards. We'll come back to those. She says, you don't get one of these unless you've seen a lot of BS, right? There's a lot of symbolism in there. But symbolically, she represents God. At this particular moment in this particular scene, okay, she represents the reconciliation, okay? She represents the plasma apocalypse and how it will all be manifest, okay? So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that you can't hide, basically. You can't hide if you have skeletons in your closet, etc. The only thing we can do is good. And we're going to come back to that. It's a huge part of this movie is being kind, doing what we know to be good or what we think we know to be good, to treat people well, right? All right. So he says, you might only see a pile of boring forms or numbers, but I see a story with nothing but a stack of receipts. So you might see just a string of DNA. You might just see like memories of the past that have long since been forgotten. However, there is an accounting that will happen in our world, right? And God, or the energies that connect all of us, they read those things. They read the DNA. Our memories, our experiences are vitally important to the bigger picture. She says, I see a story with nothing but a stack of receipts. I can trace the ups and downs of your lives. Fa-pow! Points right to that circle and says, and it does not look good. That is a warning. That is the circle in the sky that opens up and, it goes into the age-old religious iconography and symbolism of the rapture, floating up to the sky, being eaten by Kronos, etc. So we go back to the husband, back to the fun fractalverse. He says, I am here to tell you every rejection, every disappointment has led you here to this moment. I'm going to say it again because I feel it's utterly important for us and some of you out there to listen to this part. I am here to tell you every rejection, every disappointment has led you here to this moment. That means all of the bad experiences or perceived bad experiences in our lives have all been working together for some greater good, for some purpose, for some moment when your time will come where you get to shine. So that's a good way to look at things. And this movie, like it said, is all about changing your perspective, changing your mind, changing your inevitable mistakes and changing your character and really becoming a creator and taking responsibility for the path that you walk, interacting with all of those other paths out there and creating all the way. With every thought, with every action, you're creating ripples in the ponds of the fractalverse. He says, don't let anything distract you from it. You were born for such a time as this. The world is crazy and upside down, and believe me, I've seen more bad than I have seen good in the world so far. But I believe I was born for such a time as this. This is an exciting time to be in. During the time when the scales are tipped too far in one direction, that can only mean that you're going to live to see great things and that you can live to become a great thing. He says, trust no one. And then the tax lady from the alternate universe snaps his neck. But he's okay because that's just, some little version of him and he's actually connected and he doesn't mind if he dies. All right. So he says, trust no one. Also, my advice, right? Be careful. Oftentimes as truth seekers, we get all excited and we want to just go tell our friends and our family about all these wonderful new truths that we found. If you've read 1984 by Orson Welles, was it Orson Welles? Anyways, if you've read the book 1984, then you know that there is something called the thought police, which are introduced right around these times. Okay. You have to be very careful because the world collectively is being conditioned right now as to what is right and what is wrong, right? They are teaching their version of morals on commercials, on televisions, in your advertisements, in your newspapers, everywhere that you look. You are being conditioned what to believe in. All right, so she screams because she sees his neck snap. So in this world, she goes, oh my God, right? She kind of just flips out. We have moments like this as well, right? Some people don't know why, but they might have like a just random twitch or something. Sometimes there might be some stuff happening below the surface level, right? So everyone's like looking at her. And the tax lady gives her one last chance. The tax lady is eating this cookie that has a smiley face on it. And she says, you get one last chance. So she's extending their time before the accounting or the accountability comes due, okay? This is for us, okay? I'll speak plainly. Your time is being extended, right? Many people thought, oh, 2012, the world's going to end. The Mayans said this, that, and the other thing. I believe it. I agree with it. But I also know that the apocalypse is late, and it's late for your benefit. Trust me. All right, so she goes, so then they're walking away, and the husband hands her the paperwork, and she's like, what, you want to get a divorce? So symbolically speaking in the movie, if the husband represents Mount Meru and she represents, or realistically, the husband represents the earth. I shouldn't say Mount Meru. He represents the earth, okay? She is going to get a divorce from the earth. She's in the earth. She is one with the earth right now, which is Vril, or earth energy. The day will come after the apocalypse where that earth energy leaves the earth and it comes up here with us on the surface. And therefore it is seen as divorcing or separating from the earth, right? So we go to Gong Gong and he goes, little girl, always running away, never finishing what you started. That is also what the blue beam is seen as. The blue beam or the earth energy. Hey, Mary, it's good to see you. Welcome. The earth energy is seen as always running away, but it doesn't finish what it starts because those beams of light, they shoot out, they hold up the sky, and they bring healing to the nations, and they promote telepathy and an overall happy sensation, right? It's the golden age, basically. But there's a time that comes when those lights retract and we go through another polarity shift, right? And all that energy goes back into the earth to recharge, and it's seen as not facing the problems that have been created. It's seen as running away when it's needed the most, which is when we are distracted and another war comes. So she says, Father, you're wrong about me. She walks right up to the tax lady who was about to bring her some luggage that she forgot and pow, punches her right in the face. And she looks at her husband and she says, you said that I would know when the time was to fight. She's coming after us, right? Now, I want to reiterate this, even though it's a funny scene. You all will know when the time to fight has come. I know you're frustrated. I know many people are like, oh man, we should do something. We should do something and this, that, and the other thing. The time will come for you to do something. And you all collectively will know when that time will be, right? The time is not now. Or as the 21 Pilots say in one of their lyrics, they say, save your razor blades now. Not yet. Not yet. So she looks at the dissolution of marriage or the thing her husband gave to her to break up with her. Now the husband gets possessed by his higher self once more. And there's all these guards that come out and he eats some chapstick. Okay, remember that you have to like switch your shoes. So you have to do something different in order to receive your higher self, basically in the movie, right? So he holds out this chapstick. Everyone thinks he's taking out a gun, but he holds out this chapstick. I'm about to show you the craziest, awesomest fight scene ever, okay? He holds out the chapstick, which also represents plasma, okay, because of how it's plastic in nature. Anything that is malleable or bendy, like Play-Doh or gum or chapstick or whatever it may be, especially if it's pink like that, oftentimes represents plasma too. So he's going to eat this, meaning he's going to get an extra boost of energy. He's going to get a charge, right? Which is what we do. Sometimes we need to charge ourselves. Sometimes, like when I'm live streaming, I almost want to just do something like that. Wake up. You know what I mean? To wake myself up, to shock myself back into life, because we're sleepers, we're sleepwalkers. We are low on energy, man. You need to refill the gas tank. So he eats this stuff, presses the green button to do something different. Then he takes off the fanny pack. This is so fun. He takes off the fanny pack, which has a little pig on a leash. which we're going to see that a little bit later, symbolically speaking too. So he takes off the fanny pack that has the pig on the leash, wraps it around, and he has basically allowed his higher self or another consciousness in another reality where he has learned karate, where basically he's kind of like Bruce Lee because of another life path that he took. You can be that. You can be any of those paths that you choose. All you have to do is switch your shoes onto the wrong feet. All you have to do is walk in a different direction. Right now, you're walking in a particular direction, okay? If you don't like the direction, if you don't like walking around in circles in that loop, you have to switch directions. You have to change your ways, right? Once you do that, you have created instantly an entirely new self. You just have to look farther down the line in order to recognize it, right? Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So he takes off the fanny pack. Hey, Chris, welcome to my channel. Good to see you. So he takes off the fanny pack, fa-pow, and he starts instantly whooping everybody with this fanny pack. Fa-boom, fa-boom, fa-boom. I knew I was not going to do this scene justice by describing it, but you have to watch the movie just to see this one fight scene. Oh my God, it's so insane. He's whooping people with this fanny pack all over the place, like he's 10 steps ahead of everybody, right? And then there was this moment where he fills up the fanny pack with some rocks from a fish tank and he makes it even heavier. And then he kind of looks at everyone like, you still want a piece? Anyways, so then he takes the fanny pack, pow, totally whoops all the guards. It's insane. I love it. And then he puts the fanny pack back on. That's how he ends it. He's like, wraps it around himself, puts the fanny pack back on. It's such an awesome scene. You have to check it out. All right. So he told, I wanted to do this one again, just slow motion. Pow. Rocking everybody with the fanny pack. I wanted a fanny pack after seeing this scene. Oh man. I'm not a fanny pack person, but now I am. Now I'm like, fanny pack might come in handy. Anyways, that's sort of beside the point. But then he goes up to his wife because his wife is like, what the hell? Who are you? What just happened? Wayman can't do that. He goes, I'm not the Wayman who wants to divorce you. I'm the Wayman who is saving your life. Now, he's speaking to you. Imagine what you would do in this situation. He says, now you can either come with me and live up to your ultimate potential, or lie here and live with the consequences. What would you do? She says, I want to lie here. Just leave me alone. So she falls down, right? That's many of us, right? You're beaten down, you're tired. This reality is enough all by itself for many of us, right? Trying to take on the fractalverse and infinite other realities and possibilities, that can be quite overwhelming for many people, right? So she just wants to lie here. That's many of us, okay? However, we have support. He physically supports her. He picks her up and takes her to the closet, which is what we need sometimes, right? We run out of gas sometimes. We got to pull over on the side of the road and take a nap. We need some other truth seekers out there, right? You don't have, and by the way, truth seeker does not mean you have to be just a brain full of knowledge at all. You could be a lover and be a truth seeker. You could just be an adder. You can add to the world. You can give. You can add back. You can create. You can help out. Those are also truth seekers, okay? And we need you. And often, I just want to say thank you, by the way, to all of those people, those truth seekers who might not be the best with words, who might not be the best with intelligence or intellect or remembering things. But man, if you didn't add to my energy throughout the years, thank you so much for all of the little things that you've done to help us out. All right, so we go back to this other universe, the 4,655th Thetaverse, right? They're just making, basically that's Google, okay? Like there's an infinite amount of universes, which gets into the Vedic creation story of Brahma, which we'll touch on in a bit. Now, they're still in a different universe. They're still in that same janitor's closet, or they just came out of it. And she says, you're about to be graced by the presence of our sovereign leader, Jobu Tupaki. Now, look at her face, right? In this universe, she knows about this goddess named Jobu Tupaki, and she has that same mark on her forehead. It is the mark of Jobu Tupaki, right? You'll notice that it's a little bit different than the eye. It's actually the exact opposite of this right here, right? Because it's black around the edges and white on the inside. It's a ring, right? and she worships the ring. We're going to find out what Jobu Tupaki means. Let's look it up. Now, the word Jobu, the root of that comes from the name and the word Job. We would say job, which also comes from the word gob or gob. So let's look that up because that's where the word job comes from. Gob means mouth. From ancient Irish, it means mouth. So like your gobstopper from Willy Wonka, right, is a mouth stopper. So gob means mouth. Let's look up the next one. What was her name? I'm so sorry. Let me go back. Jobu. Okay, the U at the end of job there, do you see that? That just means attached to or of, okay? So, of the mouth. Now, remember, the mouth is the mouth of God. It is the mouth of Kronos that opens up from time to time to suck its children up and then breathe them back out or spit them back out or whatever, right? So, of the mouth, which is also on her forehead right there. Now, let's look up Tupaki. Let's see what Tupaki means. Most people think of Tupac Shakur, right? Which is good because it's the exact same name. All right, so let's check it out. Tu in Tupac has a number of meanings. I want to make this a little smaller. It has a number of meanings. It means a room, specifically a back room or an alcove. Remember we just did a video about the back rooms or the concept of the creepypasta known as the back rooms, right? So tu in ancient languages means a back room, right? It also can mean a labyrinth, an arch, or a vault. Keep that in mind because it's talking about our skies. The back rooms to our skies is heaven. Okay, the back rooms to the ground or the earth is the underworld. So, tu, we have figured out. It's also a relational noun, right? Which is sort of like a preposition. All right, so we can translate Jobu Tupaki in this manner. First of all, I just want to say that we said tu represents the vault, and it can also mean sky. It can also mean back room. Pak comes from the word pag, P-A-G, which is the root of the word pagan or pag-on, pag-on. Peg or pag or pak all mean the same thing. They convey an image of something that is stuck in the ground connected to something else, usually a hook or a nail or a tent peg. In ancient languages, it was seen as a tent peg, right? So Jobu Tupaki, oh, the I at the end, by the way, the I, it's just possession. When you see the I at the end of a word, specifically names, it usually means first person possessive, which means my, right? So Jobu Tupaki can be translated as of or from the mouth of my sky or the arch beam, right? From the mouth, my sky beam. That's what Jobu Tupaki basically translates to. What does that mean? That means that, as I've talked about many times on my channel, there is an ultimate sky beam or a sky pillar, right, of light, a pillar of light that shoots up from the North Pole and it hits the bullseye. It hits that hole up there in the sky. And that's what Jobu Tupaki is describing. All right. Also, the movie is going to be about the energy or the spirit leaving this world. Some of those spirits out there don't want to be confined. They don't want to feel like they are in prison. They don't want to feel stuck in this particular realm. Many of you have an explorer's heart and you want to get out of this place. And if you listen to a lot of like Vietnam era music, as I like, you'll hear them repeat that same theme over and over and over, like basically trying to figure out how to leave this world. All right, so Jobu Tupaki walks up to all these people and she puts her fingers just above their hair and their hair starts to stand up on end. So remember, Jobu Tupaki, as we have broken it down, represents an electromagnetic phenomenon. The character in the movie walks up to these people and the static electricity from her fingers, or plasma, right, pulls the hair up. It's attracted and it goes upward. This is another reason why mountains are created instantaneously during the apocalypse. You could look at her fingers as being the plasma that comes down from the plasma sphere wrapped around our world. And the closer it gets to the world, which is muddied, by the way, because it's been shaken up so much that it's liquefied and it becomes mud or quicksand in some places. Anyway, when those plasma fingers get close enough to the earth, to the modified earth itself, it pulls it up, just like the hair is pulled up towards her fingers through electrostatic what is it called? Static electricity, right? So the mud from our world, when it's exposed to strong enough of an electrical current, it will actually pull itself up. It will fly up into the sky until it touches those fingers to create and establish a circuit or a connection, in which case the electricity will be transferred to the mud, petrifying it and turning it into a mountain instantaneously, usually with a flat top, dependent upon how high up it goes and some other things too. All right, so the tax lady, her name is Bagel. We're going to talk about the Bagel here in just a bit. Bagel says, Jobu Tupaki has seen all and knows all. So let's look up the Bagel lady's name. Her name is Deirdre. Deirdre. Deirdre? I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like Deirdre. Deirdre. It says it means brokenhearted or sorrowful. And that is appropriate because in the movie, she has a broken heart, which oftentimes when people are mean and bitter and angry and stuff, they're brokenhearted, basically. They have a lot of fear and anger and stuff. And Bagel, right? So her name is Bagel Deirdre. So she is a bagel or something that is bagel shaped that's broken, right? Some sort of a bagel is now broken or brokenhearted or sad. This is all symbolic for what she represents. You'll also remember we broke down this movie, Extinct, which has creatures that look exactly like little donuts or bagels. It says it's a whole new adventure there. And that's because these creatures and that shape represent what is called a torus field, right? This is the electromagnetic field of the heart. I'll make that a little bit bigger so that you can see it there. This is the bagel that they're talking about. This wraps around each and every one of you, okay? There is like a blob that goes around you. Most people would just call this your aura or whatnot, right? But it's an electrical field that is you. It's just, this is one of your pieces of spiritual clothing, I guess you could say. And that's what this represents. This is broken. And that's when the apocalypse happens, was when the torus field breaks, when it goes through a neutral point, okay? When it has an electromagnetic reversal. All right, so it's a broken heart. Anyways, all right, let's move on. He says, you underestimate. This is the husband speaking to us, right? Because she says, how can my Wayman do that? How can you do these things? I don't understand. She's trying to figure it out. Here's what they say to many of you who are like, man, how can this be possible? How can all these crazy things be true? How can these things actually happen? You underestimate how the smallest decisions can compound into significant differences over time. Every tiny decision creates another branching universe. Every single thing that we do is constantly changing the world. So if you're one of those people that's thinking like, oh, I can never have an effect on the world. I'm just me. I'm just little old me. Nobody listens to me. I don't know that much, etc. Listen, every one of you are participating. Every one of you, whether you want to or not. If you're a hermit like I am, staying at home most of the day, trying to avoid all the craziness in the world, you can't escape it. Every single thing you do is making waves in the pool of the fractalverse. He says, look, this is your universe. Let's zoom in on that. So here's us, right? This is us. This is our universe. This is JayDreamerZ having a live stream right now with the Good Vibe Tribe in the chat with Anne-Marie Pinton, who says hello to Yvonne in the chat. And Carrie Mignon says, great handle. I love it. And Odin Stone says, Moses may be fiction, but your ability to part the sea is absolute truth. Hashtag mustard seed. Boom. That's all happening right there, right now. However, every single one of you, right? Your other versions of yourselves are also doing similar yet altogether different things there and 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 there all over the place. So check this out. You didn't know I was going to peep in on your little conversations, did you? Just kidding. Anyways, so he says, here's yours. One bubble. Your reality, our world, this realm that we call the world, the monde, the earth, haaretz, is one bubble that is floating in the cosmic foam of existence. There are many upon many other realms out there. We've been conditioned to look up at a dark canvas of the covering of our sky that actually keeps you from seeing the brilliance of all that is out there. that would boggle your mind if you even would imagine it, okay? And one day it will. We have been conditioned to look up at that darkness, stare at it, and see little tiny specks of light and just imagine that somewhere really far away is another world. Wrong. Somewhere really close by. Actually, many locations, very close by. So close that once the sky is pulled apart and you look up, you feel like you could just jump and land on another world, right? They surround us. Other worlds are everywhere. Every surrounding bubble, he says, has slight variations. But the further away you get from your universe, aka Earth, and our surrounding branch on Yggdrasil, or however you'd like to call it, the further away you get, the bigger the differences, the bigger the variations. There's good reason for this, right? Especially if you look into simulation theory and how the mind works and how the brain works, it makes sense, right? That's how the path of energy would follow, that it would follow similar to similar to similar because you build a bridge so that you can travel from one island to another, right? He says, this is where I am from, the Alphaverse. Ooh, everything turns colors. Now, this is Alpha Waymond in the Alphaverse. Alpha means it's symbolic for the first one, the beginning, right? So symbolically speaking, this is Waymond that survived the apocalypse, basically. He says the first universe to make contact with the others. I believe this is true. I believe there is a JayDreamerZ out there right now that, and this is me, okay, but I hear myself sometimes. I can hear myself. Like almost like it's the voice of God. I don't know how to describe it, but I can hear myself through echoes. It's hard for me to explain, and sometimes it's okay that it's hard for me to explain because what I'm really doing is I'm minimizing a feeling by using words. Words are limiters. However, when I share my frustration at not being able to fully express the feelings in word form, that's when many of you understand. That's when many of you get it. And you're like, oh yeah, I felt that way before. I know what he's talking about. So he says, you can call me Alpha Waymond. Now, here's what they show you. They show you two minds that are linked, two minds that are together, or a path that connects two minds, two modes of thought. Your consciousness, they say, to another version of yourself. Have you ever thought about that, right? Have you ever had maybe like some second thoughts about life and you're just, maybe you're regretful. Maybe you're like, if I could go back in time. I've answered that question a million times. People say, oh man, if you could go back in time and change anything about yourself, what would you change? And I'm like, nothing. I'm doing that right now. Okay. I don't need to go back in time. I am back in time right now. Let's do it. Let's change stuff. Let's be different. Let's change everything. Let's change it all up right now. You want to go back in time, bro? Let's go back in time. Let's start today. Okay. Let's not sit here and just, wonder and have some popcorn. Like, well, I mean, if you did go back in time, no, bro, it's real. It exists. You are living in it right now. She says, like you with the fanny pack? He's like, yep, it's called verse jumping. It's called verse jumping, right? So verse jumping is traveling the fractalverse, essentially, right? And I believe that this is a physical, real thing. Now, many people will internalize many aspects of this movie, and I do too, because reality and truth exists on multiple levels, right? But because that's true, that means, therefore, it exists on the physical, on the actual, real, factual things that really actually happen to us level, right? And I like to talk about those because that's where we are right now and it's fun. All right, so verse jumping, what does that mean? That means you become a fractal verse traveler. If you are able to get sucked up or jump up or fly out of our sky during the apocalypse, you're going to see a multiverse of other worlds, of other realms. It will be beautiful and terrifying. It will be awe-inspiring and majestic. It will be like nothing you've ever even thought of before. And you'll be able to go to other places and other realms. Now, he says, I need you to learn how to do it right now. Right? So he's giving her all of this, just like I'm giving all of this to you right now, right? I'm just kind of sharing a lot with you. I'm like the chef for today. I'm preparing a meal. We're sitting down, we're having a meal together. And I'm like, I need you to learn how to cook this right now. Right? I need you to learn how to do this right now. Why? Because the movie's saying we need your help. Okay? You need your help. Ultimately, this is you talking to you from another realm, saying, hey, we need your help. It is time for us collectively, all the JayDreamers in every realm, everywhere, to snap out of it, to wake up, contact me, listen to me, the higher self, right? All right, so he grabs a piece of gum that was underneath the table, sticks it into his face, starts chewing it, super gross. But that is him putting his shoes on the wrong feet. Start putting your shoes on the wrong feet. I'm not telling you to actually put your shoes onto the wrong feet. Okay, it's crazy. I know there's people out there that will do that. And that's fine. You could totally do that. That actually might help you. Sometimes you have to do something that's symbolic like that in order to jumpstart yourself. So maybe that would actually help some people. But I'm telling you, start doing things differently. Okay? Start throwing a wrench into your own system instead of everyone else's. All right. So he presses the green button. Boop. And he says, listen, I have seen you die 1,000 ways in 1,000 worlds. And in every single one, you were murdered. She represents the blue beam, right? Just like this, she represents Jesus. She's like a Jesus type character, right? Jesus has to be murdered in order for him to be Jesus, basically, right? There's many other things that go along with that, but that's what he's talking about. He's saying, I have seen the blue beam. I have seen the apocalypse on every single world, and in every single one, the blue light, after it makes its appearance, it goes away. It is seen as being murdered whenever it disappears. Like, it's gone right now. We don't have the blue light. We are in mourning right now. That's why we say good morning, right? Because everybody is in mourning. We are sad collectively, subconsciously, worldwide, because we're missing life. We're missing, and we miss that feeling of being invigorated, energized, happy, peaceful, giving, right? Instead of living in a world that's full of muck and poison and toxins and stuff, right? Anyway, in every world, she has been murdered. And who is she murdered by? He goes on to say, she's an omniversal being with unimaginable power. I will tell you right now, that is plasma, okay? She is a world destroyer. She is a world eater. This is the daughter that they're talking about, Jobu Tupaki, an omniversal being. That means that the plasma apocalypse happens on every world, okay? Any world that is covered, any world that has a sky, like we have our sky, is going to continuously fill up with pressure and pressure and pressure. I mean, just imagine all the people that are born into those worlds, right? And they multiply exponentially every time that you have a new being growing into this world. It's adding more and more pressure into that world. And that's just people, right? Those worlds fill up with pressure until they all pop. When they pop, they go through an electromagnetic reversal and the plasma comes down. That red plasma, or the red spectrum plasma, as I refer to it as, is a world eater. It is a world destroyer, and it visits every world, all of them, okay? So keep that in mind. These are things that other people on other realms and other planets or places, that they'll be able to relate with, because we all go through this. This is a part of all of our myths and legends and lore and forgotten history. An agent of pure chaos, Jobu Tupaki. And it's seen as being pure chaos as opposed to the blue beam, okay? The blue beam brings order. The blue beam helps things to make sense in this world. The blue beam lifts the veil, that heavy fog that is in front of our eyes, like there's scales on our eyes and we can't see clearly. That blue beam, that energy, removes them. Oh, right when the eye fell off. Isn't that crazy? Where's my little eye? Oh, there it is. I used like Elmer's glue. Let's see if I can get it to stick back on there. All right, let's see. Maybe I'll try not to touch it so much. Maybe I just like glue. I really like this. I want it to stay there for the whole presentation. I don't think it will, though. Dang it. All right, well, I'll leave it right here. Okay, that was fun. All right, so let's continue on. It's still there, trust me. All right, so continue on in the movie. Wayman says to his wife, oh, no, she says, you're just making sounds, because he says Jobu Tupaki, right? And she goes, you're just making sounds. That is exactly what it sounds like, right? First of all, that's our language. We're just making sounds, okay? We don't understand what the word origins mean. We don't understand what the words mean. Most of you don't even understand what your name means. It's just a sound. That's the sound that people call me. Well, what does that sound do? Right? That's the question. What does that sound do? What does it represent? And that representation will tell you what that vibration does. That's called a name. That's called a word. She says, you're just making up sounds. That's us. That's all the sleepwalkers in this world. Whenever they hear things like etymology or you look into deeper truths and stuff, they're just like, you're just talking. You're just flapping your lips, right? And also, most people don't care what word origins mean. They don't care what their names mean. They don't care about vibrations and frequencies and stuff. However, we do, right? So she goes on and she says, let her destroy the other bubbles, right? Here's an example of the other bubbles, right? Here's an example of what it could be like to see the other bubbles. Because I wanted to give you a good like representation. This would be like Earth. This is the Earth realm or the Earth bubble, right? As you can see, there would be another bubble around us. There are bubbles off to the sides. And this is only the bubbles that are adjacent to us. As an example, okay? I'm not saying these are actual places or real places or that these physically are perfect or that this is a scale model or anything like that. I'm saying this is to jog your memory. That off to the sides, we have neighbors. That above us, we have neighbors. That below us, we have neighbors, okay? There's life everywhere. He says she's been building something. Jobu Tupaki has been building something. The plasma that permeates the space brain or the mind of God has been building something. It's all working up to something. Okay. She goes on to say, or he says, we thought it was some sort of a black hole. We don't know exactly what it is. And then they show you this white structure. So let's go back a little bit, right? She's been building something, some sort of a black hole. When you hear this concept of a black hole, right? Try to step out of the mindset of academics and space, okay? Because we're taught black holes are way out there, super far away in the darkness of space, and somehow they're like little stretchy things that take you from one place to another or whatever. There's truth to that. But the reality is, there is a physical black ring, a black hole that opens up in our sky. It's a hole in something, right? You can't have a hole in nothing. Nothing is a hole. Okay, so a hole in space doesn't even make sense. There is a hole that opens up in our physical actual sky, and that is the black hole. There are plasma conduits just on the other side that you can ride like a slip and slide to go to other realms and other places because they're all connected. Now, how do I know this symbolically in the movie? Because then they follow it up, the black hole imagery, with this, which is the white room symbolism. The symbolism of the white room in movies always represents quote unquote space. It always represents the fractalverse. It always represents the heavens or the Elysian fields as you would see and experience them if you were to look just beyond the darkness of the city that we live in now, just beyond the skyline, just beyond the limits of that highest, hardest glass ceiling. It's white. It's bright. Everybody knows it's light. It's heaven. I feel like I should sing a song right now or something. I should jump. I want to burst into song right now. It's white. It's bright. It's heaven. Anyways, it is. Heaven is bright. Everybody knows that. Which way is heaven? Tell me. Point to heaven right now. Okay. Now listen, if you do live on a spinning, wobbling, tilting marble that's flying through unknown, uncharted regions going nowhere fast, right? You can't point, you would have to say, oh, heaven's down there too. Heaven's off to the side over there too, because heaven is space, or what you think is space. But nobody does that. Nobody points to heaven and they point down because they know down is not heaven. They know to the side is not heaven. They know up is heaven. And they know that heaven is bright. Space is not black. Space is not full of space. Space is fullness. He says, feel it. You've been feeling it too, haven't you? Something's off. Something's not right about this world. Even your coffee tastes wrong. Something is wrong. Something is amiss. Alex, hey, welcome to my channel. Good to have you. Good to see you, Alex. Oh, I like your little Neo one too. That's cool. All right. He says, our institutions are crumbling. Do you agree? Would you say that this fictional story is relating to what's really happening in our world today? Our institutions are crumbling. Nobody trusts their neighbor anymore. Shoot, I bet half of you don't even know your neighbor's names. You don't know anything about your neighbors. They're complete strangers to most of you. And you stay up at night wondering to yourself, how can we get back? You're brokenhearted. Let me tell you why you're brokenhearted. Because the world's heart, the world's torus field right now, the electromagnetic spectrum of our world is breaking. The world is so poisoned. The scales have tipped to such an extreme degree that that's what it takes. It takes having a broken heart or a broken torus field, or if we're talking about the world that we live in our local realm, the earth, it takes the earth's heart being broken in order for it to be restored, which means we go through an energetic neutral point and a flip. How can we get back? He says this is the Alphaverse's mission, right? The Alphaverse is what it looks like during the Golden Age, to take us back to how it's supposed to be. Doesn't this movie get interesting fast? It starts off kind of boring. It's like, taxes and some Chinese lady in her house and they're getting a divorce, blah, blah, blah. But then it gets deep. Oh, it hooks. This movie hooks, I'm telling you. But that begins with finding the one who can stand up to Jobu's perverse shroud of chaos. Carrie Mignon, hey, just became a member. I like your picture too. That's cool. Welcome to Good Vibe Tribe. All right, so we're looking for the one, right? The one. Neo's the one. The Matrix talks about the one. Who is the one? Is it one of you out there somewhere? One of you might be the lucky one and you don't want to be, but you're chosen anyways. Could be. Could be. Could be every single one of you. And oneness and togetherness. All right. So the tax lady in the upside down universe basically takes the circle thing that she had and staples it to her forehead, right? Staples the circle to her forehead to cause pain that is going to allow her to put her shoes metaphorically on the other foot or the wrong feet, right? So that she can download this other version of herself where in another multiversal world, she learned how to be a WWF superstar and she is verse jumping and that's not really her. She's possessed by one of her higher selves, right? So Waymond tries to follow suit. He has to experience pain in order for this to happen, okay? It doesn't have to be pain. I'm going to step away from the movie right now because I believe all of this is possible. And I know it's possible because I have experienced it personally. If you haven't, that's fine, okay? You've probably experienced things that I haven't. But I'm sharing my path with you. That's what my channel is all about. So you don't have to experience pain in order to fractalverse jump, in order to astrally travel, in order to set your aura free to move about. Like in Donnie Darko, you know how like they have that little aura that shoots out from people's chest and stuff and you can see where it's going and stuff. You don't have to experience pain to do that. Pain helps. Pain is like a shortcut basically. Okay. Because it charges you. You get shocked. Okay. You can actually get shocked and experience this type of stuff. But that's why they say put your shoes on the wrong feet. That's going to help to shock you into snapping out of it, right? Into breaking those patterns. So, you know, doing some weird random stuff like this is how they take the shortcut in the movie, basically. All right, so he's got to give himself some paper cuts. They go through these calculations into which things are going to help him to do his verse jumping. One of those things is for her to profess her love to the tax lady. One is to rip out all of her hair. One's to jump out of the window. One is to break her nose. One's to lick her elbows. One is to sneeze 200 times. Repair the father's relationship. Air flares. Write a novel. Bite her tongue off. Poke her eye out. Right? As you can see, some of these are sort of preferable and some are not. Right? So the one that she chooses is profess your love. That's a hard one to do, actually. That's for some people, that's harder to do than poking out your own eye. Believe it or not. He says it's like eating the chapstick or switching shoes. Statistically improbable actions will place you in a universe on the edge of your local cluster. which then slingshots you to the desired universe. So she can now tap into the Kung Fu universe where she has learned Kung Fu, exactly like Neo in The Matrix. There's a lot of similarities between this movie and The Matrix, right? So this is what also we can do, right? You can, if you can sense your higher self, you can ride that train back to its source, is how I'll say that in its simplest terms. She says, that doesn't make any sense. And he goes, exactly. It's not supposed to make sense. Sense in our world is a polarity. Sense in our world is what we're used to. It's what we're aware of, right? There are many things in the fractalverse that don't make sense to us. But I'm here to explore and to figure them out. So the tax lady jumps at her and she says, I love you. And she means it. She's about to get attacked, and all of a sudden she downloads all these memories, or her higher Kung Fu self takes over. And her teacher, as you can see here, she represents the beam too, right? So she's carrying those 2 water pails on each side, and she's holding onto a beam as well. And it says Kung Fu is not about combat. And she's doing push-ups with her pinkies and stuff. Kung Fu is not just about fighting. Even this cookie can be Kung Fu. Right? What is it? It is a mental place. It is a state of being. It is an awareness level. Kung Fu is the same as being woke. Okay? And as you can see, they hold up the cookie. This is the all-seeing eye symbolism that's going to be prevalent throughout this movie. This is the ring. This is the all-seeing eye, etc. Usually there's another circle right there in the middle. That's why it's an eyeball. Because you have the inner sky and you have the outer sky. There's layers. Just like in the movie The Matrix, right? So she's handed a cookie. Neo is also handed a cookie. Take the cookie, Neo. Neo looks at the cookie. Now, let's break this down because the cookie symbolism deserves to be looked at, right? If we look up the origin for the word cookie, it takes us to the word cookie and other variations, okay? Basically, it's 2-letter Ks in a row. Right? Sometimes it's a CH, sometimes it's a C or something, but it's that sound that's important. It's the kk sound, like cake or cookie or chicken or many words that are very similar, okay? Chocolate, or not chocolate, cocoa, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, etc., right? All right. Now, let's look at the word cake. Old Norse kaka. Some people might giggle if the inner child in you comes out. That's fine. But listen, kaka, cake, like Titicaca, you can giggle again. That's okay. Okay. There's a lake called Titicaca, and it is very important. You break down these words and you study their etymological origins, and we learn why they're called these things. And we learn why the movies show the symbolism so much. From the Germanic kakon, somebody who is from kok, kak. Kak, right? I've talked about this many times. That sound that I'm making with my throat, kak, right, is representative of the boundaries that are at the top of the world, also known as the Pillars of Hercules. And anyone who is from between those pillars is the kakon, or the chicken, etc., right? There's a lot of chicken symbolism, cookie symbolism, etc. All right, let me make this smaller so I can see what I got here. So from kakon, Middle Dutch koek, means a cake, a gingerbread, a dumpling, Old High German, etc. Kuchen. Now, where are we going with that? It is this letter right here that makes that sound. Cha, cha. So anytime you have a ch sound like church, right, or chicken, or cookie, or any of those types of sounds where you're coming from way down here to make that sound, and it happens twice in a row to go kuk, you're making this image, vibrationally speaking, with your words, okay? And it represents, this image in ancient Phoenician represents, it looks like a ladder, sort of. Yeah, it kind of looks like a ladder. This is where we get the number 8 from, because this is the 8th letter in the Phoenician alphabet in the ancient language, and it looks like the number 8. So when you do it 2 times in a row, it's the number 88, symbolically speaking. It represents a boundary marker, and therefore, by extension, a fence, something that keeps things in and keeps things out. Right? So you have 2 fences. They are the Pillars of Hercules. They are the anode and cathode on either side of the tree of life, and they are boundary markers. That's why she's handed the cookie. That's why the 21 Pilots in their Nico and the Niners video have this strange scene where all these dudes are holding up these lights that look like the number 8, right? That's why Buckaroo Banzai's car has the number 88 on it so much. That's why when you go back in time, you have to go traverse the 88s. You have to go past the 88th or possibly even the 88th degree, right? There's a lot of 88 symbolism. There's a lot of 8 symbolism. 8s are all throughout this movie as well. So she hands her the cookie again. She says, I'm so proud to give this to you. She's given the cookie, meaning it's symbolic, saying, hey, return to us. Come home. That's what it's saying. Go transcend those boundaries once more. Now, all of a sudden, she knows karate. She knows kung fu. Just like Neo in the Matrix, and he's totally just chilling and blocking all the punches and stuff, right? Now, in English, she says, why did you? And she says, I saw my life without you. I wish that you could have seen it. It was beautiful. Now, when they're together, that represents the blue beam is retracted and they are one. The earth and the earth energy are one. They're together. However, when they're together, we don't get to experience that earth energy. It's inside of the earth. So they have to divorce. She has to come up out of him in order for us to experience it. And she says, when I envision my life without you, or when I envision that inner earth energy leaving the earth, it was beautiful because that's when we experience the golden age. She says, I should have listened to my father and not gone with you all those long years ago. So he says to stay calm. Your brain is under an incredible amount of stress. I will tell you that that's true in the world that we live in, not just because of our drama and stuff, but physically there's stress on your brain. Physically, there is pressure pushing in on you from all sides that is causing physical stress in your life that you're not even aware of since you were born. Every jump opens up another crack, causing things to leak through. So right now he's referencing the apocalypse, and whenever we have these jumpers that go between worlds, right? These fractalverse travelers or whatnot, and it causes things to leak through. Things can come through into our world during these times. With training, you'll learn to reseal these cracks. That's symbolic of talking about how our sky cracks open. In Islam, there's actually a story where the Prophet Muhammad was talking to unbelievers, and they didn't believe in Allah. And he's like, well, what do I have to do to convince you? And they say, tear the moon in half. So all of a sudden the moon splits in half, and they drop down to their knees and they're like, okay, we believe. And believe me, it's going to happen again one day. You'll see the moon split in half. You'll see your sky open up, and many other skies as well. So they sit down, they start chowing down. She's eating a bagel, right? So symbolically, they're like, hey, you need to eat. You need energy. So what do they eat? Symbolically, they're eating bagels. So physically, they're eating food to give their physical bodies energy. Symbolically, they're eating plasma, or they're eating electricity. They're electrifying themselves to bring themselves to life so they can pay attention. This guy starts downing a bunch of half and half, aka milk, right? Which is all over the place symbolically. So to drink the milk and to get that energy from the milk is, some people would say, adrenochrome, because they haven't looked into the other side of things, okay? Adrenochrome has its equal and opposite balance, its counterpart, okay? Which is residue and a byproduct from intense electrical fields and electrical activity. Which electrifies water and stuff like that. And if you drink it, you have all the energy in the world, right? It's like the real version of adrenochrome. It's natural and it's white, typically. At least that's what it seems to be. All right. Then she says, oh my God, as he's drinking the milk. Listen, you're only using the other worlds to acquire special skills. Do you understand? What does that mean for you right now? That means that you're in this world right now to acquire a special skill. That means that wherever you are in life right now, you need to be there right now because you're learning how to do something that you never knew how to do before, so that you can take that special skill with you and add it to the collective. If you fall for their temptations, which are distractions, you invite contradiction and chaos. What does that mean? That means to stay true. to the path. That means to continue on, to walk a straight line, right? Once you deviate, you're walking at an angle. And if you're walking at an angle, you're an angle or an angel, something that is deviated from a given route, a given path, right? To miss the mark, they would say. So you invite contradiction and chaos if you fall for their temptations, right? What is the temptation? The temptation is to forget. The temptation is a delusion to fall deeper and deeper into sleep, deeper and deeper into dream after dream after dream, to constantly keep creating in our own minds things that don't exist. That is the temptation. So it's a call to focus, basically. Alpha Wayman says, though the overloaded mind usually dies, instead, her mind was fractured. Now, this is Jobu Tupaki. This is in real life her daughter, okay? But in the other worlds, every single one of those other worlds, her daughter is Jobu Tupaki. Her daughter represents the plasma or the world eater. So instead of her dying, her mind was fractured. This is essentially a version of what people would call God, okay? We live inside of the fractured mind of a deity or of God, you could call it, okay? At least that's how the movie is portraying it. We live inside of the mind of God, which has many mansions, many rooms, many partitions, many different realms that are purposefully there to be different, slightly different in every single shape, way, and form, so that you can cover all ground, so that you can know yourself fully and intimately inside and out. So she starts screaming. Her mind is fracturing. This is also what it can feel like for many of us when we first start truth seeking and we get a little too deep at first, right? But imagine this. He's showing the app. He's showing like, this is your local realm over here. This is Earth. Here's Earth number 7. Here's Earth number 429. Here's Earth number B4 or whatever, you know what I mean? This is also synapses inside of the mind of God. This is synapses inside of the brain, which means if this is what it was, if this is like the fractalverse, as I like to call it, and this is Earth right here, and this is another Earth, and that's another you, and that's another you, and that's another you, and that's another you, and all this red is a plasmic event that is happening, where all these worlds are opening up at the same time. Now, check this out. I want to read this to you. This is from the Vedas, I believe, and this is the story of Brahma. Brahma is a creator god. Okay, let me go back a little bit. She is like Brahma. Okay, so she in the Vedic cosmology or ancient Hindu cosmology, you could say, there is a creator god named Brahma. Brahma was all there was in the beginning. And then Brahma split itself into two, which cannot be done because Brahma is one. So in order to split itself into two, it had to partition its mind. It had to separate its own mind from itself so that it had a psychosis, essentially. It had to inflict schizophrenia upon itself purposefully so that it could experience a friend, so that it could experience love, etc. Right? So Brahma splits into two. Exactly. And then those Brahmas split into two. And those Brahmas split into two. And they couldn't stop. They just kept on splitting. And with each split, it was fake. It was false. It was pretense. You can't split the one. It's everything. It's everywhere. It's still there. If you take a tomato and you cut it in half, you don't have two tomatoes. You still have one tomato. It's just in two different places. You know what I mean? Anyway, so Brahma splits himself and continues to split. And the goal in that story is to return to oneness, to realize that those splits are false. Those splits are a veil. They are an illusion. Separateness is an illusion. So here's Brahma. Her mind fractures. And they refer to that in the movie quite often about the mind fracturing. Now let's go to the Vedas. Pay attention to this story. I want you to hear this. Now then, that part of him which belongs to Tamas, that, O students of sacred knowledge, is the Rudra. That part of him which belongs to Rajas, that, O students of sacred knowledge, is the Brahma. That part of him which belongs to Sattva, that, O students of sacred knowledge, is this Vishnu. Verily, that one became threefold, became eightfold, became 11-fold, 12-fold, into infinite fold. This being entered into all beings. He became the overlord of all beings. That is the Atman, within and without. Yea, within and without. Now, I know that that's written in a little bit different speech, but what that is describing is exactly what the movie is showing to you when it talks about verse jumping, right? That there is a oneness, that there is a universal soul, that God, if I may be so bold, lives everywhere, in everything, and thus can be accessed. Alpha Wayman says now her mind experiences every world. And she starts flipping through all the different colors for the different spectrums and stuff. Alpha Wayman says now her mind experiences every world, every possibility at the exact same time, commanding the infinite knowledge and the power of the multiverse. This is you, many of you. You have forgotten how to do this. You have forgotten how to tap into it. Why? Because you are one of those splits. That's a part of being a split. You are one of those splits. We have what is called the veil of forgetfulness, or Maya, which is cast and falls upon us at birth, so that we forget where we just were, or we forget why we're here and what the purpose is, right? It says that she has lost any sense of morality, any belief in objective truth, and she's looking for you. So we're going to have a polarity introduced into the fractalverse. Evil, chaos, which is nothing matters whatsoever, versus goodness, which is everything matters. And you'll soon recognize they're the same exact thing. No time for distractions. No time for distractions, all of you. No time for distractions, okay? This is the time for action. This is the time for us to start getting ready. This is the time for us to research, to put our shoes on the wrong feet, to start changing things, to donate $3 like Nagagato just did. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So here comes Jobu Tupaki walking out of the red light, representing the plasma apocalypse. She's holding a pig on a leash, which symbolically is a human being. I'll share that with you right now. So we have a little pig here that's on a leash and she's holding on to it. She is the plasma. She is the puppet master. Okay. There are energies that are fighting for the souls of the world, right? As little puppets. So she comes in and the cop says, "You and your pig can't be here." She says, "Is it that I can't be here?" This is where I started. She got my attention with this because I'm a wordsmith. I love words, right? And I love how she's thinking. However, watch the battle that's happening here, right? She's acting very left-brained. The ends justify the means. Very much a computer type of a mindset, which makes sense if we live inside of a simulation or in the mind of God, that it would act and run sort of like a calculator, right? So she calls him out. She knows what he means, right? Which is the right side of the brain. That's the emotion behind it. He's doing a terrible job of allowing his words to match his emotions. So she calls him out on it. Why? Because she's teaching us a lesson, not the cop. He says, "You and your pig can't be here. Is it that I can't be here or that I'm not allowed to be here?" He says, "Hands where I can see him." She says, "See, I can physically be here." Right? I love this whole conversation because she's right. She's absolutely right. We don't know how to talk. We have no idea how to speak, how to communicate to one another. Thankfully, many of us have learned how to just understand what is being conveyed through the feelings. We're smart enough to just jump to understanding what is being conveyed to us, right? But the reality is we have forgotten all sense in our speech. She says, "I can physically be here." Right? Also, this is tapping into our world. The plasma is not welcome inside of this world. For most people, not for me, I'm fine with it. But most people would see the plasma as being Satan or satanic or evil coming down from the skies or whatever, right? And that's what they're told. The plasma is like, "Oh, you're not welcome. You can't be here," etc., right? A very much like and dislike type of a mentality. I like it all. I see the purpose behind all of that evil and all of that energy that's coming down that's bad, just as much as I see all of the purpose behind the good and the giving. It's all together working for a bigger purpose. She says, "But what you meant to say is that you're not allowing me to be here." And then she says, you're going to make me walk through you? You're going to make me walk through you? And she says it in this kind of baby voice. So this is interesting, right? It seems like she's speaking gibberish. She's like, you're going to make me walk through you? He's like, yeah, okay. Can't let you do that either. She goes, again with the can't. See, I don't think that you understand the meaning of that word. Can't. This is also how I feel when I hear people say the word can't, right? First and foremost, this is a lesson I have taught to my child, to my son, okay? There is a huge difference between may I and can I, okay? Just as an example, okay? It's totally off subject from the movie, sort of. But may I means you're requesting permission. Can I is asking somebody, do they think that you're physically capable of doing such a task? A huge difference. Now, why is that important? Because I started requesting permission from people. I started asking, may I? And guess what? It feels good to do that. It feels good to say, may I? Instead of can I. Can I is a trick. Okay? Because when you're asking somebody, can I actually do this? Am I able to? Right? Can I take $100 from you? Can I? Right? The answer is yes, you could. Right? Like you could do that in a world where that would happen. May you? No, you may not. You know what I mean? There's a huge difference between those things. So that's the type of left brain thinking, which we can balance out, but that's where she's coming from, right? I don't think you understand the meaning of that word, right? There's a big difference between may I lift 100 pounds and can I lift 100 pounds? So she sticks her hand on his face, representing plasma possession, right? Boom. That happens a lot, like the dream crab symbolism, attaching to the face, going in through the eyes and possessing the soul. Now this guy starts to puke out confetti all over the place, right? And he explodes into a big thing of confetti all over the place. And she literally walks through him. And she says, see, I can walk through you. Now, her hair is also red. She's wearing all the various red to symbolize that she is that red plasma from above, right? That plasma can walk through you, just like a ghost can walk through you. You know how like if a ghost walks through you or you walk through a ghost, the temperature drops, right? Plasma, well, I shouldn't say plasma because plasma can't actually go through another physical object, but the energy can, right? The energy absolutely can. And if you allow it to touch your face like that, it can possess you and it can walk through you. It can take hold of you. So she says, the other cop says, put your hands up. She goes like this. She puts her hands up in the motion of the sign of peace. This is the squatter man symbol. When you put your hands up like that, that's why people do that, to show that, hey, I'm not a danger. I come in peace. It's not to show that you're unarmed or anything like that. Hey, Jay Warren, thank you. Says, thank you for putting out thoughtful content. You're super welcome. So she puts her hands up and all of a sudden, on the other side, she makes another face in the back. Remember Janus? Remember? That's what she's doing right there. It's Janus's two-face symbolism. And appropriately, she's doing this, which is the stick figure or the squatter man where Janus lives at the North Pole in the garden. All right. Now, she starts fighting people and it says that there's electricity crackling because she represents electricity. Also, she's getting ready to change things and she changes the dude into like a samba theo. I feel like this is kind of like The Mask with Jim Carrey, right? She's able to like totally change everything. And then she's also wearing earrings that have lightning bolts symbolizing electricity because that's what this character represents. Now, check this out. We go to another world where in this world, Evelyn has what they call hot dog fingers. Okay, so in some multiversal world out there, and this is where some people get lost because people will see something like this in the movies and they'll go, oh yeah, that's right. It's just a movie because something like this could never happen. Oh yeah, it's just a story. This is where the movie starts to lose some people because people will see these super long fingers, these hot dog fingers, as they call them in the movie, and they'll say, that could never happen. Oh yeah, I'm just watching a movie, and they'll disconnect. But I'm telling you, there is a realm out there where people do have hot dog fingers, 100%, okay? Maybe not fingers that are actually made out of processed meat called hot dogs. However, all right, well, that's supposed to be a big reveal to something else. Hold on, I'll get to that in just a minute. The male officer in the Alphaverse says, an evolutionary branch. So he's explaining where she is in the hot dog finger world, okay? He says that she has hit an evolutionary branch in the anatomy of the human race, and that's where she is now. Exactly like we have talked about. If you want to know more about this, when this video is over, go back and watch my Plasma Apocalypse playlist where I talk about what superpowers you can get because of what happens with all of that energy that bombards our world when the sky opens up. Basically, it allows for your skin to regenerate. So all of the collagen and elastin and stuff that allows your skin to stretch and snap back, that goes on to overdrive. Your skin and your body and everything in the whole world starts regenerating super fast all of a sudden. And stuff like this is no longer seen as an impossibility, but something that is normal. This is actually real in the world today. It's a condition that people have. Let's take a look at it. This is DNA memory, okay? That's why this happens to some people. This is called arachnodactyl, which is an awesome word. Arachnodactyl, which means spidey fingers, spider fingers, right? Is a medical condition that is characterized by fingers and toes that are abnormally long and slender, right? Longer than they should be in proportion to the hand or the foot. Causes. This feature can occur on its own with no underlying health problems, or it can be associated with certain medical conditions, including Marfan syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and some others. So let's check this out. As an example of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you can see here, right? Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Here's an example. People will be able to stretch their skin. This is real in the world that you live in right now. It's just that you don't experience it often. You don't see it a lot. People don't talk about it a lot. But imagine this. Remember, we live in a world where the energy is minimal. It is drained. The world will flood and fill with energy one day. So imagine this amplified. All of a sudden, living in another world where the conditions have changed to give people hot dog fingers is very possible and likely, right? So speaking of fingers, she does the little thing that I did at the beginning, right? And she says, open up, right? Open up. Take a peek. Take a peek into those other worlds. In order to look into those other worlds, in order to fly through plasma conduits and, to traverse the areas where souls travel, you have to open up. You can't be closed. And I'm not talking about just being open to new ideas and stuff. I'm talking about feeling. Open up your feelings. Jason Mays. Hey, welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe, man. High five. Good to see you. All right, so she opens up, and what does she see? Where is she taken to? Space. She's taken to the otherworldly place. She's taken to the fractalverse. I don't know why I'm rhyming so much today. All right, and what does she see? She sees that hole. This is the hole in the sky. Now check this out. This is the top of our world. When you look at the world from the inside, it's dark. We live in a dark city because we are under the covering, okay? We are under the cover of darkness. We are being covered from the heavens. But when you're outside in the heavens looking down into our world, it looks like this. And whenever the world opens up, it looks like that. There is a hole that opens up in the sky. This is the all-seeing eye. This, symbolically, is the eye in the sky. You see how it's kind of cracked off to the sides there too? This is an image that I took directly from one of my videos called The Plasma Volcano and the All-Seeing Eye, where I drew this exact same, look at that. I mean, that's perfect, right? There's a hole and there's another little hole right there in the middle. It's the exact same shape. And I'm telling you, it is a hole that opens up in the sky when plasma comes down full force to try to ground itself to the earth. It wants to get in. She says, I put everything on a bagel. So in the movie, this is a bagel, okay? That's fine. That's the fantasy. That's the cartoonification part of it. However, this is not just, this is dual symbolism. Okay, this is not just representative of the hole that is in the sky. This also represents energy at its purest form, which is called a torus field. Everything. She put everything on a bagel. This bagel, this torus shape, represents the fractalverse. Okay, this is what they're doing out there with like CERN and all that. I know a lot of people have been asking me about CERN and stuff. They're creating these circles, these patterns, these loops to see what happens when they try to recreate the universe or the fractalverse. So here's the bagel. She says, because you see, when you really put everything onto a bagel, and then they start zooming in, do you notice how all of a sudden you're not like in that room anymore? You're not like in this white, see how it's like all white right there? You're transported. You're no longer in that white room. Now, once I get there, you're in Earth. You are wherever you are right now looking up at the sky. And there's all this stuff, all these toppings on that bagel that are floating up towards it. And we are being drawn towards it as we get closer and closer. And Jobu Tupaki, the one that opens up the sky, causes chaos everywhere, says nothing matters. Nothing matters as they show you the hole in the sky and you are being lifted up into it, sucked into a bagel, eaten by Kronos. Or eaten by a bagel. They show you another circle symbolism there. That black circle, same thing, right? Same type of symbolism. Now, her father comes in, but he's possessed by his higher self, and he says, I am Alpha Gong. And this is what he looks like. He's in a little wheelchair or whatever right there. And what does he want? Why is Alpha Gong showing up? Well, right? If you ask Jack Burton, he says he's looking for a girl with green eyes. I promise you. Like, don't trust this dude. I'm just kidding. Okay, it's an inside joke. All right, so let's continue on. He says, you don't remember anything because your bodies were under the control of other universes. You're like puppets. Now, she's talking to her husband and to her daughter. This is such a deep conversation to have, right? Because she has to break out of those titles. She has to break out of the accepted reality of relationships or perceived relationships that are created, and she has to speak to them on a super deep level, basically saying like, hey, I'm not talking to you as my husband. I'm not talking to you as my daughter. I'm talking to you as an extension of myself. You're like puppets. Not trying to insult them, but trying to share some truth about the true reality of things. You can do things you normally cannot do. I will preach this until my YouTube channel's gone, okay? You can do things that you normally cannot do because the conditions in our world will become abnormal, which means they will be the new normal and you will be abnormal, which means you will be granted superpowers, basically. She says, it's like that movie. It's like that movie, and like, I'm thinking The Matrix, like the whole time, but she goes into a different place. She says, it's like that movie, Raccacoonie. It's like Raccacoonie. And then the daughter starts laughing. She's like, do you mean Ratatouille? Wait a minute, time out. She does not mean Ratatouille at all. She's dead serious. In her mind, she remembers a movie that was created called Raccacoonie, or Raka, if you will. Raccacoonie. The daughter laughs and thinks that's ridiculous. She just thinks her mom has it wrong. Her mom clearly remembers, and she says, no, Raccacoonie, with the raccoon, right? She's like, I'm not just making it up. My English is fine. I know what I'm talking about. It's the movie where the raccoon is on the dude's head and it's helping him to make stuff, right? This is the Mandela effect at work and being presented to you in our reality right now. People have alternative memories, like the Berenstain Bears. If I said Berenstein or Steen, half the world would laugh and be like, you mean Berenstain? No, I 100% mean with all seriousness and dedication and memories that I can pull from my experience. Berenstain or Stein, however it's pronounced. Right? I know that because I know I had problems pronouncing it. Right now, in this reality, in this crazy, weird world that somehow I'm now a part of, it is Berenstain, like a stain on the carpet. I would never have had a problem pronouncing the word stain. I'm a wordsmith. I've always loved words since I was a kid. I can clearly remember that word, that was different. Just like she remembers, it was not Ratatouille. It was Rakakuni. So, Gong Gong says, send every jumper with a counterpart in the area. They're trying to stop her. Excuse me. Phoebe Hennessy, hey, welcome to my channel. Good to see you. Yes, Bernstein in the chat. I'm glad so many people can remember right along with me. All right, so she goes into fight mode. You see that there's like this fog all of a sudden in the room, okay? And she gets these superpowers or whatever. This is just symbolic of the plasma apocalypse. When the world depressurizes, the atmosphere is ripped apart and it creates fog, basically. All right, so she starts downing this drink, and Wayman says, I think when she does something weird, it helps her fight. It gives her power. Yes, in the world that we live in right now, we have to constantly keep on our toes, right? You'll see me doing that. I'm kind of doing it right now, right? During my live streams, occasionally I will actually do some I'll make a joke. I don't know. I'll try to do something to break the monotony. I have a monotonous way about me whenever I start getting used to things. If I do a live stream that's longer than 20 minutes, it starts getting monotonous. I can hear it when I watch my own videos and I watch myself on 2 times the speed. Sometimes I have to skip forward because I have a sing-songy pattern in my voice. I don't like that. I don't like that. See, I could just do something weird, which ultimately made me laugh and woke me up a little bit. So it's good. All right. So we go back to another reality where she is watching a movie and she is an actress that knows Kung Fu, and she's watching herself as the actress. She's watching herself on a movie playing a role that you and I are all watching right now. I am sitting with you in the audience who's watching her, who is sitting in the audience watching herself. This is why I call it the fractalverse. This is the never-ending story. This is what you are watching right now. All of you out there, whether you're in the chat, I'm glad that cracked you up. Whether you're in the chat, whether you're watching in the future and you're a future person or my future self, you're a part of a story all of a sudden. Welcome to the story. This is going to be recorded. This whole video, this presentation will be recorded, okay? And every single one of you that is in the chat right now, you're writing the story. Not just by being in the chat. Whatever you're doing right now is a part of the story. We're just being meta about all of our experiences right now, okay? If we could step outside of ourselves, we would see that we're telling a story. Now, she meets up with Jobu Tupaki, but she does not have the power to fight Jobu Tupaki. So she actually pukes everywhere and she dies. And her husband's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Like, I'll see you again. And he starts calling for help. And that is how the movie ends, right? Hey, I want to thank everybody so much for showing up. I really appreciate it. Everybody in the chat was awesome today. I think I have one more thing here. Oh, that's right. It says Alexander Wang. Evelyn Kwan. Oh, so her name is changed in the movie, Evelyn Kwan. Let's look that up real quick. Evelyn Kwan. Let's look up the word Kwan. If we look up Kwan, it means everything. Isn't that interesting? Her name means everything. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Well, that was the end, but not the end of our presentation. That was the end of part 1. That was the end of everything. Now we're going to go into everywhere. Don't worry, it gets faster. The more we journey, the faster we go. So Evelyn Kwan is now her name in this other place, and it means life waters everywhere, basically. So she snaps out of it. She's watching a movie of herself. She stands up, she wakes up, and she realizes she has a moment. Okay, some of you have had this moment. I have had this moment where some deep truth is dropped on you. And you can't even handle it. It's like you got to walk around. You have to go for a walk. You have to do something, clean something. You have to process what information is being downloaded to you or given to you or supplied to you, these feelings that you have, right? So she starts actually twitching out and glitching between all these different realities. She's experiencing memories or spirit memory from all of those fractured versions of herself. And one, she's wearing this pizza costume, walks out in the street and gets hit by a car. And another one, she's directly in front of this circle and she collapses, right, as the blue beam retracts. And another one, she's a chef. She's a sous chef, and she walks in and you can hear somebody singing, culinarily, now we're cooking. We're a family, culinarily. And she goes, Rakakuni? It's real, right? Not just the Mandela effect from some memory of some movie that you saw, but the movies themselves are real. The movies themselves are based off of reality, no matter how far-fetched of an idea it is. It is based on truth. So she walks right into the movie, and you can see the raccoon on the guy's head. He's like, oh no, it's Chad and Rakakuni. I love these two. I want this to be a movie. I want this to be a movie so bad I can't even tell you. Okay, like a dark, scary Disney movie gone wrong where the raccoon's a murderer. So he says, get her. She goes, no, no, no. He's like, no, no, no. So Chad is like being like puppet possessed by the raccoon, and he picks up a knife and he goes after her, right? He's like, get her. He's like, go, go, get out of here. Now we're taken to another reality where she says, my clay pot is leaking. Some of you might feel this way sometimes, okay? If this happens to you and you feel like your clay pot, your mind, your brain is leaking, you're fracturing, you're getting a little too close to the edge, you're becoming a little paranoid or something weird, or you can't handle so much information, don't eat so much, okay? You're going to get a stomach ache. Ground yourself. Bring yourself back to reality. Do something that is simple, something that is pleasing, something that is easy for you to do to step away and take a quick break from being this fractalverse traveler that you are. She says, I can think of whatever nonsense that I want, and somewhere out there, it exists. It is real. Then she snaps back to another reality where she's doing the taxes again. Let me go back to that. She says she can think of anything. And this has been a thought on my mind for probably a decade at least. I started wondering, I don't know if a person can even just make up something. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if it's possible to truly just make up some gibberish. You know what I mean? It all has meaning. It all has purpose. We might not recognize it, might not see it, but it falls to us to untie the knot of truth, to put that fractured puzzle with all the little pieces and all the little breadcrumbs back together. So we go back to her taxes, and her husband's like, I caught you staring off into space again. And she's holding on to the circle. You see it there? Right? She's constantly holding on. That is the symbol of the apocalypse. Okay. It's a symbol of leaving this reality, I'll say. Okay. All right. What else we got? So everywhere. Let's talk about everywhere. The first thing we did was everything. Okay. Everything is connected. You are connected to me right now. Okay. You and I, we're vibing. That's why we have so many people watching right now. There's like, I don't know, 300 people or something watching. We are like-minded, at least right now. At least for a moment in time, our paths cross. And I get something from my presentation that helps me out. And it makes me feel good to offer, to be a guide, to help out, on the journey or whatever for all of you, so that you can go out and help other people out. You know what I mean? So now we're going to talk about everywhere. We've talked about how everything is connected. Let's talk about everywhere, every place. Wait a minute. If everything is one, can there really be other places? Let that bake your noodle for just a bit. We go back to the movie. They're in a laundromat. The reason they have a laundromat symbolically is the loops that they go in. They show you a circle, and the laundry is going around and around and around, just like us, right? She says, enough of your tricks, Jobu Tupaki. I know you're in there. Now, she's actually talking to her daughter, who doesn't realize that she's Jobu Tupaki. She says, get out of my daughter. Now, can you imagine if you just started talking to a random person like this? You would be seen as a crazy person, okay? So that might be your path, but exercise some caution. Now, she got it right. The daughter says, you see it all, don't you? You see it all. And then she starts backing up as she goes back through the laundromat door, and she comes out the other side in this forest. She says, you can see how everything is just a random rearrangement of particles in a vibrating superposition. You're like me. she says. So she has, now keep in mind, I took a picture. There's a flag with a bagel. I took a picture of all these different things. She actually pulls a twig down and she's holding onto that branch, and the branch just turns into all these different objects. Why? Because the branch is made out of the same thing that all those other objects are made out of. When you break it down to its smallest form, it is spirit material, I guess you could call it. And it's easily rearranged. Right? If everything's made out of the same stuff, if we're all connected, then it's easy to just rearrange it or make it seem like it's rearranged, and you have something that seems like it's different, which is what she's showing us. She says, you're like me. You're everywhere. This is you. You might not realize it, and it might be hard for some people to believe, and it might go against some of your belief systems. But the reality is, that's what the movie is telling you. You are everywhere. Separation is illusion. There can be no separation, right? You look at your body, you look at your fingers, you look at your fingers and you think, is that me? Am I these fingers? They're way far away from my face. They're far away from my brain. They're not my heart. But I know, I sense, I feel them. They're connected somehow, right? If you cut off one of your fingers, are you any less yourself? No, you're still there. In the same way, we are connected to every other thing, right? Your finger has gases that come off of it that are connected, that come out of your body, and they are pulling things in. Your skin absorbs stuff, and it takes whatever is on the outside of your body and makes it a part of your body. Everything is interacting with everything else. It's just we don't see it all the time. She says, I'm the one that you're looking for. I'm the one who's going to defeat you. She goes, okay. Hit me. Go for it. She says, well, if you don't want to fight me, why was I looking for you? Let's figure this out. So now they go back up into the heavens to have like a deeper conversation, right? Into the janitor's closet. They go back up into the heavens. She's got some crazy haircut that basically is the hole in the sky, right? And there's this ethereal music playing because they're in the heavens. They're in space, basically. All of her followers have that little circle or that big circle on the forehead. They take you back to the Elysian fields, to heaven, and she holds out a book that looks kind of like it's a Dr. Seuss book from heaven. Let's take a closer look at it. It says everything, everywhere, all at once. And it's got a hole, and she is right in the middle of it on this little island. This is symbolic of the island at the North Pole. Remember, she's the blue beam, etc., right? She's not just the blue beam. She's every blue beam. And by extension, because everything is connected, that blue beam fills our world. It leaves. It doesn't just stay on the tree of life, okay? It separates. It branches and makes fruit. And that fruit contains seeds. And the seeds go into the ground. And the seeds become people and animals and plants and stuff. So this is her. Everywhere. And if we take a look at it, she opens up the book and it says, I am your daughter is me. Every single version of joy is Jobu Tupaki. And it's very meta. She's like showing her what's going on right now. And she says, I would only do the right thing for her. She's talking about her daughter, right? Because as her daughter, she feels like her mom doesn't understand her. She's not loving, etc. The mom's like, I'm only doing the right thing for you. She goes, for you. Right, the concept of right, is a tiny box invented by people who are afraid. Right. Same thing I would say would be applied fairly to wrong. These concepts of right and wrong are polar opposites. They exist in a world that accepts polarity. And polarity is underneath that same illusion of separation. In order to have dipoles, in order to have one end and another end, you have to have separation between the two. So, right and wrong exist under the veil of illusion. What does that mean? That means there is no right and wrong. But there is. figure that one out. All right, so we continue on, and she says, I know what it feels like to be trapped inside of that box of right and wrong. Now, when she says that box, she's talking about the container. The container is the sky, or the container of our world. Each one of our worlds are containers. They are the buses, they are the boxes, etc. Now, she goes back, and she is caught between Gong Gong, the father, and her daughter. Her daughter represents the red plasma that comes down in the form of fire. Her father represents the flood that comes down in the form of water. She's torn between the two as the blue beam, right? One wants to blame the other. The father wants to blame the daughter wants to blame the father, and the blue beam is stuck in the middle. This is a cosmic family argument, basically. She says, you don't have to hide behind Gong Gong anymore. You don't have to hide behind him, right? You don't have to hide behind saying that, oh, it's because of the world was flooded by water, or the world was flooded by fire. She says the bagel will show you the true nature of things. So if you want to escape that cycle, the laundry cycle of being reincarnated in this world over and over and over, and suffering through the fire and suffering through the water and the floods, and then going back to the fire and then going back to the water, the bagel is how you escape. She says you'll be free from that box, just like me, right? Now you have to imagine this is the red plasma and the blue plasma together talking about escaping our world, right? Or the spirits like you. Some of you are red plasma, some of you are blue plasma. That's a very generic and vague term. Please understand that. However, we want out. Some of us, right? Some of you would like to escape from this box, from this school of thought that we call Earth. You've learned your lesson, right? You have learned those special skills that you need. You're ready to move on. You're ready to progress, basically. So we go back into the white space area where the space bagel is floating. Then we see the cracks. Do you see how like everything started to crack? That is the sky, okay? That is the sky cracking open. Then they zoom into her eye, which is showing you that this is the exact same thing as this, okay? This is the eye of God. This is the covering to your world. This is the sky when it depressurizes, and this is the eye of Horus. This is the eye of Ra. This is the eye of, what's his name? The Norse one, Odin, right? It's also in the movie Nope. We broke that one down too, right? When they show you that UFO or whatever that's in the sky, it's an eyeball in the sky. I was just looking for someone who could see what I see. Sometimes that's all we want, right? She didn't want to kill her. She didn't want to fight her. She wanted somebody that she could relate to. Somebody that can see that there is all of this craziness to existence. All of this craziness. Somebody who can look at that bagel and see that there's objects and debris that is being sucked up into a spiraling vortex that leads up into the fractalverse and is pulling everything up into it. Somebody that can see the rapture. Somebody that can see Kronos eating his children. Somebody that can see the electromagnetic universe theory. Somebody that can see the squatter man and the blue beam. Somebody that can see further than just riding the bus to work, starting your car, worrying about gas prices, coming home, making dinner, being tired, having a Red Bull, right? A Red Bull or whatever, going to sleep, waking up. It's all the same loop. She says, you're going to be in serious trouble. And then they show you this that gets sucked up into that bagel. It's that spiral. It's the ring. See that? It is the hole in the sky when the world depressurizes. Now, Jobu Tupaki says, and that someone is you. And when they say that, they show you her phone and it is reconnecting. This is symbolically you. All of us who are waking up, there is an enlightenment happening. There is something happening in the world right now where people are waking up left and right, okay? And I say waking up, not they are awake fully, okay? But people are waking up. People are snapping out of it. And that all has to do with the energy that surrounds us, okay? It is helping us out. So we are collectively reconnecting as they show us in the movie. She says, you want to know what would have happened or what if? And then she goes back to the laundromat reality. This is in another universe or whatever. And she's celebrating the new year. She says, Happy New Year. Now, earlier in the movie, we didn't really see this, but there was a calendar that had the number 24 on it. I believe that that was a reference to Christmas Eve, right? Because the apocalypse happens between Christmas Eve and the New Year. Now she's celebrating the New Year. They have this dragon in the background, which represents the plasma coming in, right? That's why people celebrate the New Year. It's a new year because it is a new era. It is a new epic, right? Year 0 or year 1, however you want to label it, right? The birth of Jesus, etc. There's a marker, which is our world being turned topsy-turvy, upside down, flipped around, reset. And we say, hey, let's start time over. We have to, because that's the only thing that we remember is when time reset. She says, pretending that we know what we're doing, but really we're just going around in circles. Just like the laundromat. So she decides to divorce her husband. She signs the decree. We go back to the Ratatouille place. She starts doing all kinds of different stuff. She's like, nothing matters. Cool. I'm going to expose the Ratatouille guy. You know, I'm kind of jealous of him at work anyway. So she takes the hat off. She exposes this guy, showing that he's just a puppet. She throws all caution to the wind now. He says, what are you doing? No, 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 no. And then all the people see that there's this big raccoon underneath there. What is this symbolic of? This is symbolic of us, truth seekers, that are saying, hey, forget it. I'm not going to be silenced any longer. Let's talk about all the crazy truth. All of it. All of it. Every spectrum, right? Let's expose all of those people in our world who are just puppets, right? They're just being controlled, right? From some other source. It's not them. They're weak. They're robots. They're sleepwalkers. They're only doing what they're doing because something else is stronger than they are. So she starts to expose it. She stabs her husband and he says, what are you doing? Jobu Tupaki says, not a single moment will go by without every other universe screaming for your attention. That's how important it is, right? And when they say your attention, they're talking about the attention of the plasma, of the energy in the world. There are worlds that are dying. It's a cycle that they go through. There are worlds that are just like ours that are out there calling out for God every single night, yelling up at the sky, cursing out their creator, saying, why are you doing this? Why are you allowing this? This is messed up. You think this is fair? You think this is right? Help us. Please return. Come back to us. Set things right. Because they are utterly wrong. All of these universes, all of these worlds, all of these realms go through this. It is the ebb and flow of life, right? Just like there will be a time when you cry out to the same sky, thank you. I love life. I am so happy that you have given all of this to me. You will be having an entirely opposite and different conversation with the sky when things change. All of those universes are screaming for her attention. But she's never fully there. Can't be, right? She's got to dip out and go recharge, just like you have to recharge. You got to go to sleep, right? You run out of energy, you have to go to sleep and stuff. So does the blue beam. So does the good energy of the world. There's a balance. Just a lifetime. Sorry, I don't know what that part was about. Let's go back to Rakakuni. Rakakuni says, no, no. So they're taking Rakakuni away. Now, check this out. This is actually deeply symbolic. I'll tell you what it is. Just like the hot dog fingers, some people will be lost when they see this. They'll snap out of it, right? And they'll realize, oh, it's just a movie, right? Oh yeah, that's right. This is entertainment. Oh yeah, that's right. Because this could never happen for sure. I understand the hot dog thing. That was a stretch, JayDreamerZ, but talking animals, they could never do that, riding on top of some guy's hat. No. So you know what I mean? Like people couldn't be best friends with a raccoon. They couldn't talk, obviously. Talking animals are retarded. That's true. Not that they're retarded, not that the idea is stupid, but that telepathy exists. And one day telepathy will return full force to our world and you'll be able to hear animals. You'll be able to speak to animals, right? You will no longer see the animals as meat to be eaten or to be kicked around or tortured or humiliated or hurt or put into cages and taken away because you can do so. You will see animals as other creations, other creatures, other beings that are here right along with you. And that's when the energy increases in our world so that we can connect with those creatures, right? We feel a kinship to them. This is why you have so much so many references to speaking animals and Disney and all this other stuff. They're showing you and they're repeating back to you truths that you know are real. We can talk to animals. Many people do it already, right? However, imagine if you're one of those people that can talk to animals, imagine your skill being amplified 100-fold or 1,000-fold, right? Chad is not happy. Chad's like, Rakakuni! Just contradictions and confusions. Jobu Tupaki is just giving this speech. Chad's like, get off me, get off me. He loves Rakakuni so much. I love that, right? I mean, like if that was your friend, your little animal friend, right? So let me give you an example. My son, we talk about the post-apocalypse every now and then. And my son is like, when I have telepathy, like, can I get a pet tiger or can I get a pet bear or, you know what I mean? Some giant animal or something. I'm like, listen, you can make a friend, okay? But no, you cannot have a pet. A pet is a slave. Okay, you don't want, if you make a friend, you won't have a pet. You won't want a pet. You'll have a friend. Okay, that's what that is. There shouldn't be pets, in my opinion. Okay, that's weird. Anyways, so she grabs the baseball bat. Jobu Tupaki is trying to convince her that nothing matters, right? And let's have this conversation, you and me right now. Let's have this conversation. Let's say that there is an infinite number of fractalverses where all of these infinite number of every possibility is all happening right now and you're a part of it. And this is just our version of it. And let's just say that basically means that whatever you do, it doesn't matter. You could be bad. You could be good. Ultimately, it is the collective experience that is important. No matter what you do, you are contributing. No matter what you do, it's acceptable in the grander scheme of things. So there's two ways that the movie is giving you to consider this. One way is that it doesn't matter what you do. Nothing matters, okay? Being good doesn't matter. Being bad doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You could just be chaotic. You could be spontaneous. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Or the opposite is true. So she's trying to be convinced to cause chaos right now. That's what they're showing you. So she grabs the bat, which is another symbolic image of the beam or the pole, right? The truth. And she says, with only a few specks of time where anything actually makes sense. That's the world that we live in today. We live in a world where nothing makes sense. Only very few moments does anything come together to make us smile. At least in my life. I'm speaking for myself right now. But those are the best moments. They really are. She says, I've always hated this place. And then she puts her hands up against a bunch of glass. Just like that. Boom. And my hand's almost right with hers. Check that out. Anyways, she puts her hand right up against the glass. It should be this hand. Anyways, she puts her hands up against the glass. She is the blue beam. She is the spirit of goodness, however you want to call it. And it wants to escape. She's going to smash the glass. She's trapped in the laundromat, which is our world on a small scale. And she wants out. Okay? She says, I've always hated this place. She's starting to get convinced by Jobu Tupaki, right? She wants out. So what does she do? Smashes the glass. Is it the laundromat that she's always hated? No. It's the world. It is her learning program that she is in right now called her realm, called Earth, our realm. And to get out, you have to smash the glass. The glass is the sky. The sky is like glass, okay? And one of these days it will explode just like she did. She took the bat to the glass. And one day you will see a beam shoot up like a baseball bat up to the sky, and the sky is going to break open, basically. So she goes around, she starts destroying things. They take us back to the eye in the sky. They take us back to that hole and that depressurization event. She's starting to become fractured. Her mind is starting to spread everywhere, right? This is what those vibrations do. They spread. Right now, there is a negative energy that is spreading. Okay? Imagine this is a brain. Let's focus on this real quick. Imagine that this is our world right here. Okay, this little circle is our local realm. There are many other realms, alternate Earths, whatever, to our sides, okay? And if we zoom out, we can see that we are a part of a greater synapse, or we are a part of a greater neural network. We are a part of a greater program, if you will, okay? That red spreads. See how it's all blue and then it starts spreading red everywhere? That is your vibrations. Those are our vibrations. That actually happens in the mind. When you study synapses and how they work in the brain, what they do is they build up chemicals and elements and energy and basically information. They build it up and they build it up just underneath the world where we live. It's all building up and it seeps up into those realms, creating pressure, right? And when that information is needed, say over here in this part of the brain, right? Then over here, they have an apocalypse so that that world can open up and transfer all that energy over to where this other hub is so that they can use that information. When this happens in the brain, in reality, right now, whenever you come, usually when you come to a fork in the road, this happens, okay? There is a spark that goes off in the mind. There is a lot of heightened electrical impulses. And when that happens, all the negativity is released and positivity, electrically speaking, floods the universe, floods all of those realms and all of those worlds. But then that positivity over time, right, which in this example would last a fraction of a second. But if we could dive into that and become a part of that, like Brahma, right? That fraction of a second there would be a time differential. In that time differential, we would experience that fraction of a second as like an age or an eon, okay? And throughout the cosmos, it fills up with good vibes. It fills up with good energy, with positive electrical energy. But then it starts to dissipate over time and things get worse and chaos is introduced and there is entropy, etc., right? All right, anyways. So she starts screaming, losing her mind in every single one of these versions of her in all of these worlds. She's just screaming and freaking out, and they're showing you all the different versions of you, basically, where there's every single possible reality out there. This one actually looks like a ball of plasma, right? They keep on showing all the different versions of her throughout every single realm in the multiverse or the fractalverse, as I like to call it. So after this happens and her mind is blown, she's connected to every single one of her, and she's all of a sudden consciously aware of everything, of her, which is everywhere, and herself all over the place, right? She sees the bigger picture and it overwhelms her so much that she falls down and turns into a rock. And then she just sits there as a rock and goes back to some desert place. Now, she says, "Oh, good, you're here too." So this is Jobu Tupaki and Evelyn, both as rocks, just sitting in some world where there are no humans. Let's read what they say here. It says, "Oh, good, you're here too. Joy, where are we?" She says, "This is one of the universes." Valerie V, hey, good to see you. Welcome, Valerie. She says, "This is one of the universes where the conditions were not right for life to form. Most of them are like this, actually." She says, "Yeah, you can just sit here and everything feels really, really far away." She says, "I'm sorry about ruining everything." Shh, shh, shh. You don't have to worry about that here. Just be a rock. Now, let me tell you a secret, okay? This is a place that you can actually go to when you're meditating. There are different ways to meditate and different tools that people use when they meditate. Me, I go places. Whenever I'm actually actively meditating, okay, you can just be a rock. You can go somewhere where there is no action, where you can be still. Just be a rock. She says, "I feel so stupid." She says, "God, please, we're all stupid. We're small, stupid humans. It's like our whole deal." So that's actually makes me feel better, right? Humans are stupid. Humans are dumb. And I'm a human. So should I feel bad about being what I am? No. But being aware of it will allow me to transcend it. She goes on and says, "For most of our history, we knew that the earth was the center of the universe. We killed and tortured people for saying otherwise. That is until we discovered that the earth is actually revolving around the sun, which is just one sun out of trillions of suns." Now, I'm going to pause right there because I know that cosmology is a huge touching point for so many people, right? First, she says, we knew that the earth was the center of the universe. They also do this in Men in Black, right? Where Will Smith sits down with the other dude and he's like, 100 years ago, we knew that the earth was flat, etc., right? They're mocking, saying we knew that. However, that's something that we collectively knew. It was common knowledge, okay? Today, we don't know that, but for most of history, that's what we knew. So let's compare the modern world that we live in the modern times, which is a speck in comparison to all of history, and go, who wins? All of history that all knew, you know what I mean, that the shape of the world was different and stuff, or today, which is a speck, right? All right. She says, now look at us, trying to deal with the fact that all of that exists inside of one universe out of who knows how many. Every new discovery is just a reminder we're all small and stupid, right? Now, remember, this is Jobu Tupaki. She represents like the devil or the evil or the red plasma or however you like to see it. We are small, okay? However, because it's a fractalverse, you are also infinitely large and gigantic in comparison to other things that are tiny. Little universes that live inside of your mind, where you have little beings, little creatures, little entities that are both good and bad, fighting one another, so that when the time comes, you can weigh out and recall all the information to make a decision, to go left or to go right, to do good or to do bad. You have these little angels and devils on your shoulders as well. It's a fractalverse, right? There are small and stupid things that live inside of you. She says, who knows what great new discovery is coming next to make us feel like even smaller pieces of crap. I would also say that's a position that she chooses to have, okay? And they really hit home on her position for quite some time, talking about how she feels like nothing matters and therefore she's insignificant. I would say this is one way that you could feel about it. It's all a joke. And you'll hear song lyrics talking about that, how it's all a joke. Life is a joke. It's all meaningless. It's all stupid. That's just one perspective to have, and it's unbalanced. The balance to that perspective is that every single thing matters, that nothing is insignificant, right? That every single thing is detrimental. Every single thing is important. That is the opposite. And that, if you're having problems, and if you're starting to be persuaded by Jobu Tupaki, and you're starting to feel that in the real world, where, you know what, nothing matters, right? Especially when you come on this truth-seeking journey, there's a temptation there to feel like, you know what, screw it. Like everything's messed up. Everything's bad. Everything's lies. Everything's this and that. Nothing really matters, right? Why not join in? Might as well just be evil. Everything else is evil, right? I've had some thoughts like that before, but the reality is that's one unbalanced side of the equation. The other side, the reality is every single thing matters. Linda Ray, hey, look at you. Welcome to Good Vibe Tribe. It's good to see you again. All right, she says, I was hoping that you would see something that I didn't, that you would convince me that there was another way. Jobu Tupaki, JayDreamerZ is here to convince you. I am here right now to convince all of you who are listening to that voice to let you know everything is important. Not that everything is unimportant, because there's an infinite million billion combinations, right? And the bad is equally as important as the good. Everything has meaning to it. Everything has truth to it. It's just if we don't see that, we're under a delusion. She says, do you know why I actually built the bagel? It wasn't to destroy everything. It was to destroy myself. Okay, so now this gets up here, the pineal gland, the third eye, that will destroy your ego, that will destroy yourself. When you start to recognize the connection that you have with everything, everyone, all at once, barriers fall, wars stop. Peace is increased. People become happy. I wanted to see if I went in, could I finally escape? Usually those people who are causing problems with others are really causing problems with themselves. They're just manifesting it outwardly. They have internal conflict happening. She says, I wanted to see that if I went in, could I finally escape? So the question is, if you leave the earth, right? Symbolically speaking, if you wait until the plasma apocalypse, the sky opens up and you leave with Elon Musk and NASA and all those other people who are going to blast off one day. If you leave with them, will you escape? Yeah, you'll escape this realm. But will you escape the mind of God? She says, like, actually die. She's been reincarnated. Many of us have, many times over and over and over again. She feels like she wants to actually die. She also represents royalty in this equation. Do you see what she's wearing? That's like the Pennywise collar type deal, right? A lot of royal people used to wear that. That was to keep the sun off of them because they were allergic to it, basically. When they first came down into this world, they couldn't handle that sunlight whenever it made its first appearance. They're not used to that. They're used to more of an ambient glow. So, as you can see, we've got the all-seeing eye symbolism. She goes back in her mind. She's still here, but in her mind, she goes back to the laundromat, and Jobu Tupaki's in the background as her daughter, right? And she starts looking over at her husband, and she says, my silly husband is probably just making things worse over there in that other reality. So she's wondering, should I just jump into this all-seeing eye and destroy myself with Jobu Tupaki? If they do that, your world and my world ceases to exist. So they can't. Otherwise, we can't have truth in movies tonight because they both jumped into the all-seeing eye. Now, the husband convinces the tax lady and she says, okay, you can let her go. You can let her go. He says everything's going to be okay. She's going to give us another week for one last meeting. That means that's symbolic. You have extra time. Congratulations. The apocalypse has not come today. The apocalypse did not come last Christmas. It did not come this summer solstice. We are given extra time. What? To do what? To be what you've always wanted to be. To do what you've always wanted to do. To do whatever you want to do. You're not stuck at your job. You are not stuck in your loops. You choose to do those things. You have an extra week for one last meeting. She says that's impossible. Well, guess what? You have an extra week to do the impossible. What do you want? What do you will is a better way of saying that. What is your will? Now, Jobu Tupaki's in the background and says, it's just a statistical inevitability. The impossible is a statistical inevitability. What does that mean? That means every single, let's say that you have a number, okay? How do I explain this? Let's say that you have a line, and on that line are written every number. Okay, starting at 1, going up to a Google, we'll say, right? And if somebody was to get struck by lightning, that would represent one little notch in that line, right? And she says it's just a statistical inevitability, which is the impossible. Getting hit by lightning is impossible. It's a statistical inevitability, but somebody will. Somebody will get hit by lightning, and that's a miracle. It is impossible, right? The odds are far against it happening, and yet it does happen. What does that mean? That means every single thing that happens is a statistical inevitability. It's impossible, all of it. Every single thing that happens. If one impossibility happens, it connects to everything else, making everything else impossible. You live in an impossible reality. She says it's nothing special. Ah, really? Is it nothing special, Jobu Tupaki? Or is it everything that is special? And every occurrence is no better or less than every other occurrence. It is all meaningful and it is all working together for our benefit. So her husband says, you think that I'm weak, don't you? And then in another world, he's protecting her. He says, can we just stop fighting? You tell me that it's a cruel world. You say the world's messed up. He says, I've been on this earth just as many days as you. I've been tortured. I've been treated unjustly, unfairly, laughed at, humiliated, ridiculed, patronized. I've been through the same things as you. I know that you are all fighting because you're scared and confused. When I choose to see the good side of things, I'm not being naive. It is it's strategic and it's necessary. The only thing that I do know is that we have to be kind. Please. Be kind. So that reminded me of Buckaroo Banzai. Buckaroo Banzai's up there partying and rocking out and stuff, sharing the good vibes, and some girl's crying in the audience, and everyone's like, oh, boo, don't bring us down with your bad times or whatever. And he goes, hey now, don't be mean. We don't have to be mean, because no matter where you go, there you are. That is the fractalverse. That is seeing all things connected. Especially when we don't know what's going on. Those are the times that we need to be the kindest, right? Because when you don't know what's going on, that's the most exciting times. That means that it's all working for something. The plot is thickening. The plot is developing, and it is leading to something that is always rewarding. I know that you see yourself as a fighter, and her fists are clenched. Well, I see myself as one too. This is how I fight. And then you see that they're under the green light when they're having this conversation. That's because it's speaking from the heart. It's the aurora borealis, the heart of the world, the light of the world. She goes, Bagel, hello. Remember, nothing matters. Remember, hello, let's just destroy everything, right? Let's not. Let's stay. Let's stay and lucidly dream and look at all those people around us who are completely unaware, not realizing how amazing everything is. Let's help them. Let's help them out. Let's be good. Let's fight that good fight. She says you can still turn around and avoid all of this. They're speaking to you. You're not stuck in a loop. You can still turn around. You can change your ways. You can stop doing the same bad things that you have done to yourself and to other people over and over and over again. You can break the habit. You can break the cycle. You can turn around. You still have time. You have an extra week. So be kind. They hold hands. They establish a connection. A circuit is created between the two. And it shows him holding hands. It shows all these great memories of him laughing and dancing, finding the remote control. Hey, telling a funny dad joke. He says, you know what? You complain. I'm going to paraphrase. You complain about this world. You talk about how terrible it is and all of the deceit and all of the lies. And it's all fake. And there's these other realities and stuff. But in another life, I would have really liked just doing laundry and taxes with you. Just like in this reality, I would have really liked being a YouTuber and being a tiny little part of all of your lives and interacting with you just for a little bit. I would really have liked that. And I do. So they share a big old hug, and she smiles and she's happy, and Jobu Tupaki's pissed. She's like, no. Remember, nothing matters. You can't be going around thinking that everything matters. She goes, okay, you're feeling good. I get it. You're feeling a good thing right now, which is what happens when you go watch these movies, by the way. You will feel a good thing. Like some of you truth seekers out there, you'll be like, oh my God, yes. You know what I mean? But it fades when you walk away. Jobu Tupaki tries to take control. And she says, you got your hopes up, so I'm here to save you some time. Eventually, that all just goes away. Yeah, but my hopes are up right now, and right now is all that matters. Right now is reality. So they put their hands together. They do the little magic, ninja magic hand sign deal. She looks through the opening, and she can see the other Jobu Tupaki. She can see her spirit, basically. This is what it's like when you see in the spirit, too. So things are there, but things are like superimposed on those things, basically. And she opens up, she can see that the all-seeing eye is there, and she brings it into the real world. It starts to suck people into it because of what it represents. She says, you're not unlovable. And she's actually out there talking to the tax lady because she feels unlovable, right? You're not unlovable. She goes, what are you talking about? She's about to attack her. And she goes, there's always something to love. Right? So now she's addressing all of the inner issues that these people have. She says, even in a stupid, stupid universe where we have hot dogs for fingers. And she gives her a big old hug. Right? And all the people start pointing their guns at her and everything. shoot a bullet and it stops right there. She takes it and turns it into a googly eye, right? Like my little googly eye that I have that fell, right? All right, anyways, turns it into a little googly eye, which means her third eye is opening. She's replacing the blockage, which is blocked by violence and war and separation and the illusion and veil of separateness, and she replaces it with an eye where she can recognize things. Angela Morris, hey, welcome. Good to see you. So she puts on her all-seeing eye. She puts on her third eye. She opens up so that she can see the connectedness in all things. A little popcorn. Thank you very much. And she says, stop that. Stop doing that. You're not supposed to move. You're just a rock. And she says, there are no rules. There's no rules anymore. So check this out. She flips the script on her, on Jobu Tupaki. Jobu Tupaki uses chaos to tear things apart, to increase anger and fear and paranoia and things like that. Now she is saying, I'm going to use those same tools of all that random craziness to create unity, to create love. She says, I'm learning to fight like my husband, who represents earth energy. I'm learning to fight like you. Instead of fighting fire with fire, I'm going to fight fire with plasma. I'm going to fight fire with love. These people are attacking her. So she takes their arms, she puts them together, smashes them into each other. They kiss and they're happily in love. They fall in love and they're married. So instead of them coming and attacking with violence, they unite. She grabs this guy who's got a grenade, turns it into a bottle of perfume and sprays him with a scent that reminds him of a good memory, right? These are our weapons. If you are out there and you are of the lost tribe or you have a remnant of that blue beam spirit energy, this is your weapons. He says, my wife used to wear that exact same perfume. And so she uses that, right? Happiness. Do you see how he smiles? This guy, she cracks his neck instead of killing him, and she adjusts his body. She fixes his ailments. She is the blue beam also, so she's actually healing people too. Jobu Tupaki's wearing her little teddy bear all-seeing eye outfit, looks over. The dude, what was his name? Mark or something? I forgot his name. But anyways, from Rakakuni, she jumps up. That's what he wants. She starts giving everyone what they want. And this is what happens during the real Christmas season. People are bestowed gifts, right? Which are spiritual gifts or electromagnetic gifts. And they're given what they want. They're given their desires. This guy wants somebody to ride him and control him. So she says, okay, that's what I'll do then. Okay. Instead of allowing the puppets to be puppeted by a bad energy, I'll puppet you with good energy. That's what you want. You want to be a puppet. Let's change the energy that's feeding that puppet, right? So she goes up against all of the other people who are having issues. They're basically puppets. And she says it's only a matter of time before everything balances itself out. Chad is chasing after Rakakuni and she's on top of him and he falls down. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't. Rakakuni! And that's in the other worlds. She says, because it's all just a pointless swirling bucket of crap. And she holds her face down towards the bagel so that she can get erased, right? She says, the bagel is where we finally find peace, Evelyn. She says, stop calling me Evelyn. I'm your mother. So then they go back to the laundromat world. And she says, let's just go our separate ways, okay? I'm totally different. You know, I want to be spontaneous and destroy things, and you're totally not just letting me do that. And you're trying to, you see, they're trying to infect one another. She tried to infect her mom with all the negativity and the hopelessness and saying nothing matters, so why not just destroy it all? Why not just destroy myself? Her mom tried to infect her with positivity and good vibes, saying, no, you have it backwards. Everything matters. And because everything matters, you matter the most. You're a part of everything. You're so important. You touch so many other lives. You change the future. Here, all we get are a few specks of time where any of this actually makes sense. So I will cherish those few specks of time. And then you can see that the universe goes from red back to like a green color or whatever, which is exactly what happens in your mind after you have your synapses fire off as well. She reaches through the bagel, which is symbolic of the fingers of God or the plasma reaching through. And then they show you these apples smashing into each other. These two polar opposites hug each other. They smash into each other. The rocks crash into each other. These worlds crash into each other. And it's symbolic of the neutral point. Okay? There's a left-hand path. There's a right-hand path. I get it. but there's peace in the middle. So we go back to the ring, and that brings us to the last part, which is called all at once. Pay close attention, because all at once happens quick. She goes back and she kisses her husband. She's like, man, I love this guy, right? Why am I being so mean to him? My husband wants to divorce me. She falls back in love with him. She goes back to the husband. Back in the tax places, she's staring off into space. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, what did you say? Because she experienced everything, everywhere, all at once. And that is our movie. I hope that you all had a good time. I did. I had a blast. I want to give a special shout out to everyone who is joining from some other channels, right? Sometimes I'll pop into the live stream on other channels just to say hello and stuff. A lot of people are showing up for the first time. If you're new, welcome. It's good to have you. Feel free to take your time and explore all of my playlists and all my different content. I have a website. It's called JayDreamerZ.com. I sell merch now. If you're interested in getting some merch to support me or just to rock the Truth Seeker vibe, check out the merch shelf. What else? I wrote a book. I am an author, and my book is all about the event that I've been discussing, which is the plasma apocalypse. It is a short version. So instead of having to watch, presentation after presentation, you can have the book, which is the Cliff's Notes, that will give you chapter after chapter on everything that we've already gone over, and you can keep that forever. What else do I want to say before I go? I want to say that I love you. I want to say that I'm proud of you. I would like to say that I love what I do. I love being JayDreamerZ. And if there's some other JayDreamerZ out there, and I'm having thoughts of being the best one I can possibly be, hopefully I help out in some way. All right, I'm rambling, so I'm going to go. I'm so happy. I love being in all of your presence sometimes. And I'm so excited for you because hopefully, not even hopefully, I know that everyone is changing constantly. And I'm so excited for you on your path to see what ways you put on your shoes on the wrong feet. I'm so excited for you to see all the little times when you've made a difference. All the little times when you've changed your mind. When you've grown. I'm proud of you. I'm excited. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
I try so hard to fade away. I try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. Oh.
vast multiverse.